The Deputy Speaker.
Let us pray. Almighty God, where you have called us to govern this province, we ask your help to make decisions and laws that will be just and will promote the interests of the people. Almagtige God, ons bid dat u gedurende ons vergaderings ons die nodigheid wysheid sal gee en ons motiewe suiwer sal hou en dat u ons sal help om ons tekortkominge te oorkom en al ons besluite aan u op te dra. Sikelele elizwe, letu nabantu balo, omesile ukulunga kipondo letu. Nkosi sikelele e Afrika, klina abantuano bayo, kokela inkokeli zayo, ninike kolo e Afrika. All this we beg in your holy name. Amen. You may be seated. A very good morning to our members, our ministers, our guests in the House and those that are connected virtually as we proceed with the third session of our appropriation bills. Before I proceed, may I just remind you, I'm sure by now I don't have to read out all the rules, but just to ensure that you are all properly connected, that you have sufficient audio and video if you are joining in on the hybrid session. And honourable members, please, if I can remind you that no interjections are permitted during these hybrid sittings. And in this regard, I draw attention to the honourable members to Rule 40 of the standing rules. I will now begin and I will ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Debate on Vote 7, Social Development, Western Cape Appropriation Bill.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I recognise the Honourable Minister Fernandes.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable members of the August House, special guests and members of the public and online, members of the media, fellow South Africans. Good morning, goeiemorgen, molweni nonki, assalamu alaikum. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I rise to table the budget for Vote 7 against the backdrop of two tumultuous financial years. In the wake of the COVID pandemic, our resources have had to be realigned from the original 2019-2024 Provincial Strategic Plan towards supporting the Provincial COVID Recovery Plan, and in particular, its well-being and dignity and safety priorities. What was first thought to be a temporary disruption to our way of life has fundamentally transformed.
Minister, just give me a second. Can we please check that all other microphones are muted and that your two devices are not next to each other? Please, if my table staff can assist. Thank you very much, Minister. You may proceed.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. What was first thought to be a temporary disruption to our way of life has fundamentally transformed it and presented new challenges and exacerbated existing challenges. COVID-19 has impacted the already fragile socio-economic landscape. Its impact has been severe and will be felt for some time to come. This is especially so given that our economy was in a technical recession before COVID-19 hit our shores. Communities are soaked in trauma as they reel from unemployment, poverty, and many social ills that are prevalent in society. Earlier this year, Deputy Speaker, the National Minister of Finance, Enoch Godongwana, noted that the country's real gross domestic product, GDP, is expected to grow by an average of only 2.1% this year. This low growth rate has left the nation with a shortfall of funds at the very time when government services to address socio-economic ills are most needed. And this situation has, of course, been further aggravated by the ongoing misappropriation of public funds at a national level, most notably the very funds which were meant to procure PPE, TERS, and social relief of distress payments to alleviate the suffering of vulnerable households, workers, farmers, and small businesses. Honourable Deputy Speaker, although the Western Cape remains a beacon of hope in a country dominated by ineffective governments, we are not an island. The economic situation of the country is being felt by every man, woman, and child in this province and other provinces. At the same time, the Western Cape's population is growing rapidly, as it is in South Africa's other economic centres, such as Gauteng. The budget we table today is therefore a stark reflection of the joint challenges posed by decreasing revenue and a rapidly increasing need for services. Honourable Deputy Speaker, we are clearly being asked to do more with less. Our budget is therefore aimed at harnessing our department's constitutional and legislative functions in service of the Western Cape Government's COVID recovery plan. The department's focus area in support of this plan inter alia is the provision of statutory and court-ordered interventions for children and youth at risk, humanitarian relief support to communities, support to the homeless, combating the scourge of gender-based violence, improved leveraging and coordination across service delivery areas and spheres of government to achieve greater impact and efficiency, and the filling of priority service delivery frontline posts that are currently vacant. The total budget allocation for the department over the 22 MTEF starts at 2,285,335,000 for 2022-2023 financial year. This amount has been adjusted to exclude the 391 million allocated to the early childhood development budget, as this function is shifting on Friday the 1st to Budget Vote 5, the Western Cape Education Department. Taking this reduction into consideration, our budget for 22-23 is nearly an 85 million reduction compared to the projected allocation for the year in our pre-COVID MTEF. In the outer years of the MTEF, our projected budget is 2,277,442,000 for 2023-24 and 2,340,016,000 for 2024-25. The totals therefore decrease from year 1 to year 2 by 7,893,000 and then increases by 62,574,000 in year 3. This, Honourable Deputy Speaker, is of course subject to any further changes in the highly uncertain economic environment in which we are operating. Honourable Deputy Speaker, this budget I table today is therefore primarily characterised by either maintaining or cutting our budget allocations from the previous financial year. However, in order to aid us in our work to support the COVID recovery plan, the Provincial Treasury has made some additional target allocations to the department. These include an earmarked amount of 25 million rand for food relief to vulnerable families that will support food distribution centres and community nutrition development centres across the province. This amount is made over and above an existing 28 million in the department's baseline budget for this purpose, bringing the total allocation for food relief to just over 53 million for 2022-23 year. This amount serves to support the provincial COVID recovery plans, well-being and dignity priority area, responding to the food crisis that we are facing in this province as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic impact thereof. An earmarked amount of 3 million rand for the conversion of the Robin Newrock Community Health Centre into a homeless shelter that will initially accommodate approximately 120 beds, with a possibility of further expansion in the future. During the COVID pandemic, the department has already increased the number of funded bed spaces for homeless adults from 1,500 to around 2,400 at 27 shelters each day. We remain aware of the important role that shelters play in ensuring that many vulnerable citizens who do not have their own homes are treated with dignity and respect, even though there is no regulatory framework to support these individuals. The provincial department assists the homeless by fully or partially funding NPOs that work directly to assist and empower the homeless with skills training, reuniting them with their families, and integrating them into our communities. The department received an additional 2 million to enable mobile connectivity, with many individuals working away from the office. An additional 1 million earmarked for the digitizing of the non-profit organization management system in POMS, and 1 million rand for the development of a mobile client service system to support social workers in the field more effectively to deliver efficient services. Honourable Deputy Speaker, 21,333,000 has been earmarked for the funding of non-governmental organizations, which has been used across various programs to help mitigate the large cuts to transfer funding in the department, a serious issue that I will unpack in a moment. Funding for safety parents were increased to make provision for a much needed tariff increase from 27 Rand to 34 Rand 50. I cannot thank each and every safety parent enough. Safety parents are passionate individuals who care deeply about children and help us by opening their homes as places for temporary safe care, as an extraordinary measure that can be used by designated social workers or police officials where they believe on reasonable grounds that the child is in immediate danger. As a department, we believe a child's immediate and extended family is best placed for them to flourish and develop. However, if we have reason to believe that a child is unsafe in their own home, they will have to be removed through a detailed process and be placed in temporary safe care. Honourable Deputy Speaker, 40 million rand is earmarked for compensation of employees to provide for the 2022-23 wage agreement, which includes a 1.5% pay progression and increases in housing allowances and medical aid contributions over the MTEF. This additional allocation is currently only applicable to the 2022-23 financial year. No provision has been made yet in the MTEF for the carry-through effect of the wage agreement. Apart from these additional earmarked amounts, the department has made provision to cover all of its existing contractual obligations entered into via procurement processes, and our operational expenditure received inflationary increases over the MTEF to cover statutory price hikes in areas such as security services. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the additional earmarked amounts received from Treasury will assist us in our drive to implement the COVID recovery plan priorities that we support, and in the case of well-being and dignity, that we lead. However, I return to my earlier point that this budget sees more cuts than we can afford. and there is no avoiding the reality that we are facing a hard year ahead. Various measures have been put in place to minimize the direct impact of these cuts on service delivery to citizens. These include and are not limited to: we have started engagements with various NPOs in an effort to understand and assist as best we can with the limited resources available to us. No new staff or external bursaries will be awarded for the year, although current bursary obligations have and will be maintained. Maintenance budgets for office and facilities have been reduced. Austerity measures for stationery, printing, and office supplies will be applied, hence my having to read my speech back to back. The procurement of IT equipment has been reduced, and it affects the Departmental Technology Refresh Program. The allocation for IT equipment will be maintained over the MTEF. Honourable Deputy Speaker, of all the cuts, I am particularly concerned about the impact of the 25 million rand shortfall of funds to fill the vacant posts. The department has had to reduce its recruitment plan to cover this shortfall. This will result in significant additional pressure on the remaining staff in the department, who I might add have worked really hard throughout this COVID pandemic. The workforce is tired, they are stretched to capacity and face even greater demands as we see and have to contend with an increased population growth, deepening social ills, and widespread economic hardship. I am even more concerned about the sustainability of our key partners in service delivery, the non-government organizations that we fund. Many organizations have already closed their doors or are on the brink of closure due to the reduction in private sector and donor funding. COVID-19, as well as the preceding economic downturn, has placed immense pressure on the NGO sector and their regular sources of funding from both the private and public sectors. Therefore, the work and services that NGOs, particularly in the social sector, have continued to provide is commendable, but it is becoming increasingly unsustainable. Sadly, the budget we table today sees a net reduction in transfers of around 40 million rand. Honourable Deputy Speaker, a shrinking NPO sector will render more citizens vulnerable and without adequate welfare services to assist them. In turn, this places at risk the department's ability to cope with the needs of the citizens as enshrined in the Constitution. Services affected include child protection, humanitarian relief, youth development, and substance use disorder services, as well as services to persons with disabilities and older persons. We are currently involved and engaging in a series of meetings with the NGO sector, and I have committed together with my team to doing everything we can to mitigate the impact of these cuts for the coming year and improving our support over the medium term. I acknowledge and thank the entire non-governmental organization sector, NGOs, NPOs, CPOs for their support and valuable contribution in alleviating many of the social ills and challenges faced by our most vulnerable citizens, and deeply regret that we cannot do more to sustain our support for the valuable work that you do. Honourable Speaker, I will provide a brief overview of how these additions and cuts affect each program. Program 1, the decrease of 810,000 from the revised estimate of 238,895,000 in 2021 to 238,085,000 in 2022-23 is due to a reduction in baseline allocations. This will affect support services in the department, which has a knock-on effect on service delivery. In the outer years of the MTEF, the budget allocation for Program 1 increases to 245,723,000. And in 2023-24, it increases to 249,127,000. Under Program 2, Social Welfare Services, the decrease of 25,133,000 rand from the revised estimate of 1,065 million in the 2021-22 year to 1,040 million in 2022-23 is due to the reduction in the baseline allocations and budget pressures. The budget allocation thereafter increases to 1,049 million in 2023-24 and then increases to 1,073 million in 2024-25. The impact of baseline budget reductions will lead to less transfer and subsidy payments to older persons and services to people with disabilities, and an inability to fill many social service posts within the department. Program 3, which is children and families, the increase of 9,985,000 from the revised estimate of 438,361,000 rand in 2021-22 to 448,346,000 in 22-23 is due to the additional funding received for social development welfare, NPOs and homeless shelters. The budget allocation thereafter decreases to 448,309,000 in 2023-24, and then it goes back up to 471,134,000 rand in 24-25. At the same time, there are some budget reductions which will affect social service organizations supporting families. In terms of Program 4, restorative services, the increase of 10,291,000 or 2.2% from the revised estimate of 458,488,000 rand in 21-22 to 468,779,000 in 22-23 is due to additional funding received for social development welfare NPOs. Budget allocation thereafter increases to 474,469,000 in 23-24 and 485 million in 319,000 in 24-25. The gender-based violence program will therefore not face significant budget cuts, but budget reductions will affect substance abuse and social crime prevention over the short term, and some of these are based in our GBV NPOs. Program 5, Development and Research, there is a decrease of 3,488,000 or 3% in the revised budget of 93,433,000 in 21-22 to 89,985,000 in 22-23. In the outer years of the MTEF, this amount is projected to decrease further to 59,927,000. Since the 25 million earmarked allocation for food relief is a once-off allocation, the program's allocation is projected to increase slightly from there to 61,804,000 in 24-25. The immediate impact of baseline budget reductions for the year 22-23 will lead to less transfer and subsidy payments for the EPWP program and youth cafes, with EPWP reduced to the 4,978,000 incentive grant. In conclusion, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the reality of fiscal constraints and government-wide reprioritization across the MTEF demands that this department and the entire social development sector or social sector establish innovative ways in which our services can be delivered to the citizens of the Western Cape. The current COVID-19 pandemic has compounded socio-economic uncertainties, requiring a transversal, whole-of-society approach to promoting improved safety, well-being, and dignity. We definitely need to work with other spheres and departments of government, civil society organizations, the private sector, and most importantly, communities in order to move forward towards recovery. In this regard, we will continue to build relationships with all stakeholders who have an interest in improving the lives of residents in the Western Cape. Honourable Deputy Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic will not deter the department from striving to deliver a comprehensive network of social development services both effectively and efficiently to the poor, the vulnerable, and those with special needs. And before I conclude, I would like to thank all members of this august House for their support and robust oversight. I also wish to thank the Head of Department, Dr. Robert MacDonald, the management and staff of the Department of Social Development, our NPO partners, and importantly, all the social service professionals throughout the province who assist us daily. I also wish to thank the Honourable Member Gillian for his support as the chairperson to this committee, and I would like to take the opportunity to formally welcome the Honourable Member Plato as the chair for the standing committee, and I wish to say thank you to all the members of the committee. Your support has been invaluable. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise Honourable Baku Vos.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Am I audible?
You are audible. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Honorable Leader of Opposition, Honorable MEC and honorable members. Yesterday, State South Africa released quarterly labor force survey for quarter 4 of 2021, showing that the official unemployment rate in the country increased by 0.4% to 35.3% in quarter 4 2021 compared to quarter 3 2021. The increase was recorded in 5 provinces, with the largest increase recorded in KwaZulu-Natal, followed by Mpumalanga and the Western Cape. The year-on-year changes to the unemployment rate in the province showed a 5.5% increase for 22.5% in quarter 4 2020 to 28% in quarter 4 2021. Over the same period, the expanded unemployment rate increased from 26.8% to 30.4%. The Western Cape, once prided by the Premier as the province for jobs, now has an unemployment rate of over 30%. This strategic and really scary as the majority of the unemployment are youth, including those that are not in employment, education, or training. Nationally, the need rate increased by 2.9% from 41.8% to 44.7% in quarter 2021. With the Western Cape being home to 2.4 million young people between the ages of 15 and 34 years. Surely we have to be concerned and scared at this latest unemployment figures. This is a ticking bomb time that can explode any second from now. The department in its annual performance plan has noted that are disproportionately affected by unemployment and poverty. The department committed that it will continue to provide programs and interventions that facilitate the holistic, positive development of young people to be productive individuals as family and community members. As stated in the app of this department, this will be done through digital literacy skills, stimulate entrepreneurship, develop basic digital competencies, to address the digital divide, with a particular emphasis on not in employment, education on training youth in rural community. In addition, the department will provide after-school programs at youth cafes to support youth in transition, grades 10 to 12, with academic and overall skills development. Further offering at youth cafes include sign language courses, sexual health related service to raise awareness and prevalence of GBV, drug and alcohol counseling, as well as community-based crime prevention initiatives. Honorable members, in light of the above challenges and the state's intervention to address them, it is shocking that the budget for the youth development program of this department has been cut. Budget for the substance abuse prevention and rehabilitation program has been cut. During our engagements in the standing committee meeting, highlighted our discomfort with the direction the department is taking to address the challenges of youth development. In response to the increased demand for services, the department cuts budget. This will not only limit access to service for youth on the ground, but it will also lead to possible job losses in the NPOs whose budget have been cut. The app acknowledged that drug use, misuse, and abuse continue to present challenges to the health, safety, and well-being of individuals, families, and communities in the province. If you understand this reality, then why are you cutting the budget allocation for this?
Honourable Member, if you can just take your seat.
Deputy Speaker,
One
we
minute.
have proposed.
Honourable Member, just take your seat.
Deputy-
I have 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute. Honourable Said. Apologies.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, just a caution, the heckling and discussions has the ability to disturb the speaker, particularly in the context of an online hybrid sitting. That is why you've amended the rules in that.
Sorry, Honourable Said, I didn't hear. Was that in the House?
In the House, yes.
I will
In
monitor.
the House. If it
I
can just,
didn't
we're not
hear-
saying people must not heckle, but if it can be toned down.
I will certainly check. So thank you very much. Honourable Member Bakabaka Force, you may continue.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. And I thank Comrade
Order.
Said Ali to raise that.
You may.
We have proposed in the standing committee meeting the urgent need for this Department of Health to partner on programs to address substance use disorders. The MEC must give us an update on the development on the drug master plan aimed at combating and reducing the prevalence of substance use disorders. What is update regarding the establishment of local drug action committees, and when will this be established in all municipalities, and how will you fund them while cutting budgets? What we need is an additional drug rehabilitation center, especially in working class communities. Moreover, the EPWP and youth cafes are not enough to resolve the above youth challenges. We have raised in the committee meeting that we need a youth development strategy in the province that will speak directly to these social pathologies affecting youth. Member Kama made a similar call to the MEC Maresh during the deliberations on Vote 14, Cultural Affairs and Sports, which is the lead department for coordinating of youth programs in the province. I reiterate the calls and the demand for youth development policy. If it is true that indeed a policy in this regard exists, then make a copy of such policy available. Honorable members, the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on families, poverty and unemployment is not receiving the attention it deserves. The disease has left a number of children orphaned in the province. There are a total of 28 child-headed households in the department's database, and there is no data on the number of child-headed households created by COVID-19. I call on the MEC and the Department of Conduct further investigation on this. In the face of rising unemployment rate and poverty level, this budget does not make any additional allocation for humanitarian relief. The 2020 General Household Survey reported that 13% of children and 10% of the total population are living in the households reporting insufficient food. There is no doubt that this number has increased drastically due to COVID-19 pandemic. The department needs to conduct its research to provide latest data on the prevalence of child hunger and food poverty in the province. In response to this department budget for humanitarian relief is a mere 58 million. Remember, Member Mackenzie also complained about this in the standing committee meeting and was told that the additional 53 million for food relief, which the MEC claimed as her victory last year, was actually an allocation from the national government. This government only has the 58 million to spend on community nutrition and development centers, as well as on providing cooked meals to qualifying beneficiaries at 105 feeding sites across the province and 411 community kitchens. As already stated last week during the budget debate, this is not enough and will not bring sustainable solution for poverty. We must continue making calls for the accelerated implementation of the basic income. I want to reiterate the call I made last week for this provincial government to consider increasing the number of funded CNDC in poor working class communities. One CNDC for a large community like Stellenbosch, for instance, is not enough. There is a serious need to consider increase this number of funded CNDC. Moreover, Honorable MEC, a number of funded CNDC operate on very small spaces and many are in need of infrastructure maintenance project. Your department must find means to make this possible. The HOD, Mr. Robert McDonald, rejected our calls out of hand and claimed that they do not have budget for humanitarian relief and additional CNDCs, and redirected us to the national government. Finance Minister Comrade Enoch Godongwana announced in his budget that the Department of Social Development will receive the largest allocation of 58.6 billion over the medium term. This will go forward fund for. This will go towards funding for. First, to initiate a new extended child support grant for double offense. This is to encourage the care of orphans within families rather than foster care. Second, to provide for inflationary increase to permanent social grants. Thirdly, 44 billion is allocated for a 12-month extension of the 350 social relief of distress grant. Honorable members, we must welcome this intervention by the national government. Deputy Speaker remained concerned by the by this department role in the hiding of free sex for job scandals. Our question regarding the number of free victims who are working for the department are not fully answered. We have written to Honorable Plato requesting an urgent meeting to receive a detailed update from the HOD about what he knows about the free scandals. We are yet to receive the date. Honorable Mackenzie, whose constituency is in Mitchell's Plain, where the victims resided, must be given a chance to come clean about what he knows. We want the freeze report to be made available to members. This is a tax-funded investigation. Premier must not treat it as his personal report. It is clear that Premier is in contravention of Rule 73 on refusal to disclose information. It is shocking that there is no GBV policy in the provincial government. The budget for GBV is not enough. The Victim Empowerment Program only has a budget of 67 million to design and implement integrated programs and services to support care and empowerment victims of violence and crime, in particular women and children. This is simply not enough. Deputy Speaker, while we welcome the commitment to provide specialized social work intervention to school-going children and youth in the 11 high-risk police presence in the province, we want to remind the department about our calls for placement of unemployed social work graduates in schools. There is a high demand for psychosocial support in schools. It is for this reason that we have called for the partnership between this department and the Western Cape Educational Department to place the unemployed social work graduates in schools. There are shortages of social workers in the department. The official have explained that there is a shortfall of 147 social workers at Coalface phase. This contributes to a high social worker to population ratio. We are calling on the department to create more employment opportunities for unemployed social workers graduates. We remain alarmed by the high number of child deaths in the province. Over 1,000 children died in the province in the past 12 months, including those who were murdered and those who died in accidents. This proves that Western Cape, especially the poor working class communities, is not safe for children. A number of children fall victim to gangsterism. We need more programs to protect children. We welcome the budget increase for the child care and protection program, but we are concerned with budget cuts for care and services to families programs. The ongoing child matters clearly shows that we need to give the Children's Commissioner more funding and make it an independent entity. We are shocked by the budget cuts for the program service to older persons as well as services to persons with disability. This is totally unacceptable and we will not support a budget that will weaken support to vulnerable persons. I have told the MC about the case of person with disability who's facing eviction from an old age home in Guguletu. We are calling for the MEC agent intervention on this matter. The ANC not support this budget. I thank you.
Can we mute her, please? Why has she not been able to be muted? All right. Can I find out why we are not able to do that? To mute when I'm asking, please. That clearly the member cannot hear, but I cannot have her take over for another 10 minutes. I'm sorry, honourable member, you have been muted. You were way over your time. Thank you very much. Honourable members, I'll only do that if it really is that you are not listening or hearing me. I now recognise Honourable Member Mackenzie.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and thank you, Minister Fernandez and the department for this budget vote. We, in fact, welcome the allocation for the 2.2 2022-2023 financial year as part of the budget to push forward. Honorable Member, Honorable Baku Baku Force said 3 very important statements actually, but she's directing it to the wrong people. And I'm going to quote herself. So, Honorable Baku Baku Force, while you, Deputy Speaker, I'm quoting her. She said, if you understand the realities, you wouldn't do budget cuts. A second statement is that the government, I presume she wanted to speak to her own political party, don't understand the impact of unemployment and COVID-19 and does not receive the, I think that she meant the impact or the attention it deserves. And the statement, and a third statement is on increased funding for social services. Now, we all wanted to do that. In fact, Honorable Deputy Speaker, I would like to drive a Ferrari, but I can't afford it. That is the reality of the matter. And she is not addressing the right people responsible for the situation that we find ourselves in at the moment. Minister Fernandez and her department in the Western Cape government has gone to extraordinary lengths to support all the organizations that rightfully so deserves funding. Gender-based organizations, NGOs, many of our NGOs dealing with the social ills, including the millions of undocumented individuals that are in this country, that this department and this government consistently in the Western Cape, like many other provinces, are trying to accommodate them with social services, in hospitals, in schools. That's what we're doing. And the reason that we're sitting with this problem is because the party that she is a member in good standing of, including their bad partners, the Good Party, has built a washing line instead of a proper border fence. The reasons we're dealing with the social challenges, because our borders are porous. So 3 very important statements she needs to make in ANC branch meetings, even if it's only the 3 branches out of the 116 that they have. That is where those statements should be addressed and should be addressed in the National Assembly, the National Council of Provinces. So her statements are valid, but she's addressing the wrong people because they are responsible for what we are sitting with, Honourable Member. Honourable Ministers and Honourable Members, we know the demand for social release has significantly increased over the last 2 years. And it was this Western Cape government and this department that made available 53 million rand, if I remember correctly, under the last budget. And this financial year, a further 25 million to strengthen food relief measures, including additional 15 million. So she misunderstood my quote in the meeting, or she didn't properly read the page in the budget book. And I'm going to quote from that budget book. The department further strengthened food relief measures to support. Hulle het dit sterker gemaak in Afrikaans. I don't know what the Xhosa word is, but I'm sure the honourable member can Google it. So, honourable members, we strengthened. It means to make it stronger, not decrease. That is, as far as I know, the Oxford dictionary would go. Honourable member, we are sitting with a SASSA problem in this country. In fact, it was the Honourable Lindiwe Zulu, I think, who said the last time there is a corruption problem in her department. We now see the Honourable Batu Dlamini, who destroyed that social development department, was found guilty. And ironically, on the 1st of April, on April's Fool's Day, she will be sentenced. But we are the fools. The poor are the fools on April's Fool's Day, because she single-handedly destroyed social development, SASSA, in this country. It was her social development. Right now, if you go to Mitchell's Plain, the people outside social development offices stand in the rain to receive their social grant. The people outside post offices, they made no provision. The department that the April Fool will receive on the 1st of April had made responsible for that. And despite, yes, of course, budget cuts take place because of the national government, we have to find the best way in dealing with the province. And interesting, Honourable Baku Baku Force did not deal with a very important matter. If she goes to the SASSA's website, she will see the Western Cape has 16 SASSA offices, the Northern Cape 57, which one can understand the size of their province. But the Eastern Cape, the most corrupt province in the country, has also over 50 officers. I wonder what they do in the offices except for stealing. In the words of my cousin, hulle gaan net werk toe om te steel in hy provinsie. But in the Free State, one of the smallest provinces, we have 23 officers. Honorable Baku Force and the ANC really cared about social development, about gender-based violence, about all the issues they'd like to talk about. They should ask for consistency across the board. 16 officers versus 23 in our poor rural side of the Western Cape. It's a disgrace. And I'm deplored at some of these statistics, which the honorable members in their inputs via their colleagues in the NCOP or in the National Assembly don't want to raise. Last year, we went on to oversight visits, and I know the Honorable Baku Force was very helpful and very good on those oversight visits, where we dealt with our senior citizens, our elder and our old age persons, and we welcome the support this department has given to those members of our community who sadly many people do not take care of. Honorable Deputy Speaker, and I'd like to take this opportunity to ask that all of us, including members of this House, if you know of people in the senior homes or the elder homes, that we ask our community members, our cousins, our fathers and mothers, not to dump the individuals in these care homes. It's our collective responsibility, because it's sad to see that many of these individuals, their families don't call them, their families don't visit them, that we really take care of us. So we do support this budget, Honorable Deputy Speakers. It is tough times. And it's not going to get easy when you sit with 47% unemployment caused by the national ANC government, who sadly do not pay any attention to the unemployment crisis, which is right. It's a disaster. That's another disaster. And none of the policies that her party implemented is dealing with that disaster. Cabinet members who waste money, cabinet members who bizarrely try to implement policies. Last year, in fact, the Social Development Minister, no Minister Fernandez, will respond to that 12,000 or some bizarre policy that the draconianly where they had to withdraw after the middle class outraged about it. It was their ANC cabinet, and the ANC in the Western Cape choop still, do it still. Say nothing on these critical policies that impact the Western Cape, of which they are elected members of the legislature for. So we fully support this budget, and we call on all members to work with our social development department, work with our communities, with all the scourge in our social ills in our communities, to ensure that we can play a proactive part in helping this department, given the terrible national government's policies and implications of this budget. We thank the minister, we thank the department and my colleagues. Let's support this budget and work to make our communities better. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now call on Honourable Makamba Botia. You there, Honourable Makamba Botia? You're online? Don't see. She is online.
Deputy Speaker, am I audible?
I can hear you now. You may proceed.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. The hunger and food security are some of the key challenges which continue to affect communities in the Western Cape. The recent figures from the General Household Survey project that 17% of households in the province go to bed without food. This is very much concerning, taking into account that such percentage does not take into account homeless staying in the streets. The Provincial Department of Social Development must provide more funding to NGOs that distribute food packages to those without food. The department should also encourage the establishment of new NGOs in remote areas specifically, which it will fund to distribute food. Unemployment, Deputy Speaker, is also a major contributor to the hunger in our communities, and the department does not only assist people in getting food, but must also assist them to access employment opportunities. Deputy Speaker, the department should work with community leaders, social service personnel, and NGOs in order to identify and assist child-headed households. The department needs to make a real intervention in this regard to make sure that children in these households get birth certificates, get registered for child support grants, enroll for school, and get adequate food assistance. Child-headed households, Deputy Speaker, remain vulnerable in our society, and a big percentage of this budget must go towards their assistance. Deputy Speaker, the department must play a leading role to make sure that homeless people are removed from the streets and housed in decent shelters. They must be provided 3 meals a day, and those struggling with substance addiction or abuse must also get medical social assistance. Deputy Speaker, this department should also pay attention to the issue of crime related to GBV. Unlike the Premier of the Western Cape and other departments which do not want to accept the real impact of crime in the Western Cape, we have now recently had a case in Theewaterskloof of a councillor who has resigned because of what the shenanigans that are happening in that municipality, of a councillor who is not expelled yet he's been implicated in the GBV matter. At least this department notes it as a real challenge, with Western Cape demonstrating higher numbers of gender-based violence and sexual-related crimes when compared to other provinces in South Africa. This is a real challenge that must be tackled head-on, and we must not be told that the safety plan is working whilst women and children continue to be sexually violated and abused in greater numbers on a daily basis. This department, Deputy Speaker, must work on measures that will prevent social ills. Shelters for women suffering from abuse must also be increased in order to every woman in this province to get assistance and care. The department, Deputy Speaker, must also run an extensive programs which show the youth the dangers of substance abuse as a prevention measure, and also assist those already battling with
Thank you,
substance
Honourable
abuse.
Member.
On
Your
that
time.
note, Deputy Speaker, we are not supporting the vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I just check, Mr. Secretary, is the Good Party online? I recognize Good, Honourable Member August.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, social development has for the longest period of time proven to be the antidote to crime. In a country where crime happens at every turn of the corner, and especially in a province as unsafe as the Western Cape, it is greatly disappointing that the Western Cape government has not positioned the Department of Social Development as a weapon with which to combat inequality and a direct intervention to decrease crime. The department notes the importance of its function to provide a framework of social intervention. However, community-driven action remains outside its area of focus. We acknowledge that the pandemic hampered many development initiatives. However, this very department has been struggling to adequately spread its budget's priorities as it's operated in a stressed fiscal environment since before the COVID-19 outbreak. The Provincial Department of Social Development celebrates the transfer of safe houses from the National Department of Public Works and Infrastructure as a success story. Considering this department's own shortcoming, it is quite disappointing that they are either unable or incapable to think outside the box when it comes to prioritizing key interventions that could impact lives, fight inequality, and empower communities to take charge of their future. In the 22-23 budget address, MEC Mania allocated an additional spend on social development of 136 million over the medium term. These funds will go far if MEC Fernandez should start considering interdepartmental programs, especially with community safety, for this administration to get a holding grip on the escalating crime and community violence. Social development can do a great deal more, and it requires those in charge to start applying their minds innovatively with the menial financial resources that they have. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable August. I now recognize, I think Honourable Marie is not on. Mr. Secretary, not on. Okay, we will move on to Honourable Brinkhays. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Deputy Speaker. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The well-being and social development of communities in the Western Cape is in a very, very big crisis. The Al-Jamaa believes that the budget for 2022 is a far cry from the social needs of the poor and the needy. And thus, this budget will not address the social needs of the Western Cape. Shelters for abused women and children struggling to keep their doors open. There are still not enough psychologists and social workers to counsel school children. Also, what Also, what plans are there to prevent children from begging at dangerous intersections on public roads? This has been happening for many, many years, where young children are begging at robots during school hours and after school hours. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honourable Bromkes. I now recognise Honourable Member Plato.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, honourable members, Honourable Minister Fernandez. Honourable Deputy Speaker, I rise in support of the provincial budget for Vote 8. I welcome the allocation of almost 2.2 billion rand for the Western Cape Department of Social Development's 2022-2023 budget. This department has a major role to play in the eradication of poverty, unemployment, and other pervasive social ills, such as gender-based violence within this province. This is a broad mandate, and one which we, as a provincial legislature, must make every effort to support, because a strong Department of Social Development means a nurtured and guided youth, relief for the unemployed, food for the hungry, and skills for the workers of tomorrow. In fact, when one reads the department's annual performance plan and understands how much the department has and seeks to impact the lives of the most vulnerable in the province, one can only applaud our Minister of Social Development, Shana Fernandez, and her team for a job well done. The simple fact is that the Western Cape Department of Social Development is functional and effective. We are proud of the work that the provincial department and its entities have achieved in the face of growing carelessness and corruption by the national department and its entities. If there's less corruption, it means there is more funds available. Then we don't need to cut budgets, as the other members have indicated. That is where it is coming from. We can all see that the National Department of Social Development is on the brink of total collapse, where you have heard a minister arrested and appear in court for corruption activities and that sort of thing. In the absence of an effective ANC National Department, it has been the provincial government that stepped up in order to protect the dignity of the most vulnerable in society. I'm sure that there are some in this House who are itching to rebut the DA successes by highlighting the supposed successes of the African National Congress government in terms of social development and social welfare for the vulnerable. Speaker, there is nothing for them to boast about, especially not in relation to the following. And listen to this, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The ANC Minister of Social Development attempted to block NGOs and Good Samaritans from providing food to the poor and vulnerable at the beginning of the lockdown. It took the DA and NGOs going to court for this decision by Minister Lindiwe Zulu to be reversed. While millions of poor South Africans were seeking relief from the meager 350 rand social relief of distress grant, public service employees were unlawfully benefiting from this relief. When the poorest of the poor required SASSA's help during their most difficult time during the pandemic, their offices were running at minimal capacity. Even during those times, the draconian state of disaster allowed for increased staff capacity. And then I want to add what Honourable Mackenzie have said, Honourable Deputy Speaker. The long queues, people standing whole night long. The other day, I visited the office in Bellville. You can't believe it. Queues up to 500-600 meters long and that sort of thing. And that is happening in South Africa. And then we, the DA, get criticized for not doing enough in Cape Town and in the Western Cape. But who is in charge of those offices and who is mistreating their own people? It is the ANC themselves, and we must face the brunt for that. And that message the ANC must get. During the lockdown, when our most vulnerable were seeking relief, disability grant recipients had to endure the indignity of long queues to renew their applications. These applicants were met with water cannons from the police, supposedly at the behest of the National Minister of Social Development. Speaker, in the most vile display of the ANC's disgrace, the ANC National Cabinet spent 19 million rand on luxury cars. When millions of South Africans were desperate, had to stay behind closed doors during the hard lockdown without finding work, and when we couldn't go and say goodbye to our loved ones who passed from the pandemic. When the national government and its ministers showed disdain, this provincial government showed care and dignity and continues to do so going into this new financial year. The department's projects over the last financial year have focused on providing relief to the most vulnerable in our society. The Rasia and Eye on the Child Initiative Protect project will support our youth. The Youth Cafe programs provide skills for our teenagers and young adults. Our feeding projects provide vital food relief for the hungry, and our partnerships with NPOs allow us to provide critical services to the physically and mentally disabled. The comment about the youth cafes and programs and projects and that sort of thing, I just want to remind the members, it is not only this department focusing on youth and youth interventions and projects and programs. Other departments, exactly the same. We heard about it yesterday and the day before, education, sport, arts and culture, and also some other departments, such apart from social development. Honourable Speaker, this department's mandate is becoming even broader. And this is it. And looking at the figures, what is impacting our figures, and people refuse to understand that, the in-streaming of people from other provinces could potentially increase. And we see the increase already. Looking at the last unemployment figures released by Stats SA a couple of days ago, in two provinces that are bordering the Western Cape, Northern Cape and Eastern Cape, the unemployment figures have risen to well over 50%. In the Eastern Cape, this figure is at 50.1%, and actually in the Northern Cape, 50.1%, and in the Eastern Cape, it stands at 53.2%. Our residents, in addition to underlying population growth, means that the department has to serve, and this is it, Honourable Deputy Speaker, more people with a budget that is constrained as a result of the national government endemic looting and corruption. And we need to cater for all those people coming in. We don't say no for that. And people refuse, members refuse to understand that, Honourable Speaker. The budget needs to be stretched to cater for those people, to give them relief, to help them, to support them. And that is where our unemployment figure is also beginning to rise steadily in relation to people coming and seek relief in the Western Cape. They can't get it in their own province, because that's where the looting and corruption are taking place. They come and look for refuge and comfort in the Western Cape. That is what the facts are telling us. Despite the budgetary limitations across the board, we are pleased by the continued commitment by the department to support communities. And that support, as the Honourable Minister have indicated in a speech, that will continue. To address social ills and imbalances in the Western Cape communities is a mammoth task, and a whole of society approach is required if we wish to overcome the present challenges in respect of the hardships of our people facing. The department continues to support issues related to GBV, and we support these measures. I'm not going to say much more about that. I think the Honourable Minister was quite clear about GBV. The department addresses these issues with partners such as NPOs and other welfare organizations, and even other state departments. We duly recognize the major role played by NGOs and welfare organizations, with many of them operating under difficult circumstances. We thank the many NGOs that have and continue to partner with the department in delivering services to our citizens. Despite budgetary constraints brought on by the national government, we need to wage the war against poverty and our social ills. This department is gaining momentum in making huge strides towards this objective and making impact where it most matters. This budget speaks to poverty alleviation and the eradication of GBV, as well as addressing unemployment women and children's issues and the reintegration of the homeless. GBV continues to be a key priority of the department. And the minister rightly said, the department does everything possible to play a meaningful role in eradicating that problem with a stringent partnerships of our NGOs and whole of society approach. Breaking the cycle of poverty and unemployment remains imperative. We welcome the department's whole of society approach towards each of us playing our part in ensuring that the message of education being the key to empowerment is steadfastly implanted in the communities across the board. Our people must get this message. We can overcome poverty. We can overcome hardships if we take certain steps. And one of the critical steps to take is to make sure our children stays in school, that they, Honourable Deputy Speaker, that they pass matric, and that after matric not to go and work, that they attend a college, that they attend a university, that they obtain a form of a qualification that will open doors for them. As Nelson Mandela have rightly said a number of years ago, education will be the key to empowerment. I think that message stays true even years after his passing. Speaker, we also acknowledge our social workers who have the enormous task of dealing with a variety of cases across the province. Speaker, while the continuation of the SRD grant will go a long way in assisting the poor, the only way we can elevate our people from poverty is through creating conducive environments to shine, access opportunities, be entrepreneurial, and create jobs. We especially welcome the increase of almost 10 million rand that is allocated to the protecting and nurturing of our youth. This funding will go a long way to ending cycles of poverty, unemployment, and crime at their source. And in conclusion, finally, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the budget of the Department of Social Development speaks to many pressing issues of our most vulnerable society, and with programs such as I Am the Child and other initiatives concentrating on the hungry, destitute, receiving the necessary assistance they require. It is with confidence and great confidence that we support this budget vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Minister Fernandes.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, allow me to thank all the members for their contribution to this very important debate today. I note that a lot of what I mentioned in my opening remarks has been repeated, and the members are correct. Crime is on the increase, poverty is increasing, unemployment is increasing, but what has not happened is funding to the province has not increased. Based on the number of citizens living in this province. So we have not increased social workers, we've not increased teachers, we've not increased nurses and doctors, yet we are placed under immense pressure. And I would like to believe that we have become the victims of our own success, because you see people coming from other provinces to come and enjoy the services in this province. Allow me, though, to preface my response to all the honourable members. And I also want to say, Speaker, it is inappropriate, in my opinion, through you, for members to posit information here as fact when it is not in fact true. It is actually factually incorrect. And I will alert you to the stats is a GBV stats, which will actually show where the highest numbers of gender-based violence is. I've always been very clear that the Department of Social Development cannot or should not be politicized, because hunger, gender-based violence, addiction doesn't know a color. Hy dra nie 'n skippe nie. Dit is nie geel of rooi of blou of groen nie. When people are hungry, we have a duty to serve them. When children are enslaved to addiction, we have a duty to serve them. And so it is in this respect that I am going to respond in a manner that is unbefitting of me, but I do believe that there are some real issues that need to be surfaced, because we cannot be taking responsibility for a dysfunctional national government. It is imploding. They do not have a send receive on their laptops. I have sent endless emails to SASSA. I do not even have the courtesy of a reply, not even an acknowledgement of receipt. On the days of MINMEC meetings, you get your agenda on the morning. It is a complete shambles. So I want to say that despite all of this, this department with just over 2,500 staff have worked hard and relentlessly to keep themselves intact, because the department too have human beings who have been impacted by COVID. So I want to say that, but it would, Deputy Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to mention the failure of SASSA. And as the Honourable Mackenzie mentioned, maybe the anger or the responses are misdirected, but SASSA has a duty in terms of the Social Services Act to provide social relief of distress. And what has happened when COVID came along, SASSA no longer did school food parcels, school uniforms, starter kits for fires. They switched to SRD 350, and that was the solution to this problem. Well, guess what happened? 13 million people applied, and the system crashed. And then my office became a call center for the national SASSA. Do you know that a SASSA official from Namibia called the Western Cape to ask us to get in touch with SASSA? That is how bad it is. When we talk about the Honourable Mackenzie raised the number of SASSA officers, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I was in Khayelitsha last week. We have a shared service office which is owned by the Department of Social Development, yet SASSA has taken over that entire office. It is a complete mess. The dignity and well-being of the beneficiaries waiting in that queue, there is just no regard. And again, I'm going to be writing a letter, and I trust that the minister is going to respond. It is unacceptable that in a province where we have the highest number of people with disability grants, you might remember last year, I had to basically summon SASSA, and thereafter we met them once a month, every Monday from 2 to 3:30 to help them work down that 52,000 disability grants because they had no plan on the first day that I met them. And unfortunately, SASSA has dropped the ball on the most vulnerable in this province. We talk about the draconian regulations that were implemented. Many of you will remember, we were told we couldn't buy chicken at Woolworths, we couldn't wear pluckies, all of the above. And then we heard about the ECD sector or NPOs that couldn't serve hot food. The insanity of SAPS who should be assigned to taking care of crime. SAPS was going around acting on an imperative or a policy stance that was taken in KwaZulu-Natal and went around to NPOs in this province to close NPOs from providing vulnerable, hungry children with a hot meal of porridge every morning. It took civil society, Honourable Deputy Speaker, to step up and say, Minister Fernandez, we support the view that you make that children cannot be deprived of a hot meal. Whoever conjured up that regulation, but sadly, I think yesterday in the House, we heard about the quality of our thinking. I think there is a need to improve the quality of our thinking. So we have the Stimulus Relief Fund. So I hear the Honourable Member Baku Vos, and maybe I shall start from the top, which is the easier way to go. The Honourable Baku Vos talks about, firstly, a youth development strategy. The youth development strategy is firmly vested in the dignity and the well-being and dignity work stream. And I think it's an important point, and Premier has been trying to make it, all the ministers have been trying to make it, but the opposition refused to see. We do not work in silos any longer. I lead the dignity and well-being work stream together with Minister Schaefer, Minister Mbombo, Minister Marais, and Minister Meyer. Because we take a cradle to the grave approach, the first 1,000 days is in health. From health, the ECD and schooling is with Minister Schaefer. Sports, arts and culture has a role to play with after school. And sports, arts and culture is also the department that leads the youth strategy, because we now work transversally. But other departments feed into that youth strategy. So I do need to emphasize that we have a safety work stream. DSD is part of the safety work stream because there are areas that are cross-cutting. We have a jobs and economic recovery work stream led by Minister Mania. We are a part of that too. So I would like to believe that this is the only province that has taken a different view rather than wallow in the mud of corruption that we are facing. I mean, I haven't switched on my TV in months. It's just gloom and doom. It's just theft and corruption. I mean, on an epic scale like we've never seen before. We talk about local drug action committees. The draft plan is in the process. It will be in my office by mid-April. The Western Cape Substance Abuse Forum is very active. I attend their quarterly meetings where I can. But the local drug action committee resides in a local government space. So again, Member Baku Vos, through the chair to you, in the municipalities where DSD have signed memorandums of understanding and intent, local drug action committees have been established. It is in the dysfunctional municipalities where there's politics and coalition infighting that there is no regard for the rights of citizens. There is no local drug action committee. There is no gender-based forum. There is nothing going on. It's all about stealing money, who wears the chain, and who is large and in charge, and who controls an area or a precinct. Child hunger is very real, yet it is not limited to this province. You might have seen in this morning's headline how many children have died in the Eastern Cape of poverty and malnutrition. And it's sad. Any child that dies anywhere in the world is a child too many. But we also saw earlier in this week on ENCA that the KZN NPO sector has virtually collapsed. DSD have not maintained the support to them for the last 6-7 years, and the system has actually crashed. So whilst there is this comparison and this bashing of what is happening, we are trying and we are almost acting in tandem with other provinces to provide them with the necessary support. They have no idea what the ECD stimulus payment is about. And remember, under level 5 and 4, Honourable Deputy Speaker, nearly 100,000 teachers, ECD teachers, were placed out of work. They were mostly women. They were offered a stimulus relief package. Well, guess what? The National Department of Social Development decided they would manage that process, and they botched it completely. Of the 52 million rand that we got, we only received 7 batches, and we've paid out just about half of that. They have now discovered that they cannot cope. So guess what? It is now been pushed to provinces, and provinces now need to run around to make sure that we can get that stimulus relief package to those vulnerable women who take care of our children. So if we listen to understand to what is playing out here, we are all subjected to what is happening at DSD at a national level. And I can tell you, without any blink, there is nothing happening there. There is a very limited understanding of what is happening on the ground, people's lived experiences, and I am deeply concerned. There is a breakdown between National DSD and National Treasury. And on the point of Member August around celebrating houses, we were invited as the Department of Social Development Western Cape to attend a media briefing on the 4th of March 2020, I think it was, by Minister Zulu and Minister De Lille, who had identified 6 properties that National owned in this province to be used for shelters. The Gauteng province was also afforded 6 properties. Well, guess what? The Honourable Heron, before the Honourable August came along, accused me of playing politics with gender-based violence. But in Minister De Lille's own department, they were at odds with each other, 6s and 7s. So the memorandum was only signed in October, despite the big media launch in March. Despite all of that, together with our provincial public works and stakeholders, and here the NPOs become very important, we got all 6 our houses up and running, functional by the 30th of June last year. Guess what? The question in the National Assembly that was asked, what happened to the 6 safe houses in Gauteng? They were returned to National Public Works because DSD and National Public Works are at odds with each other and they still need to sort out. So whilst Member August says we celebrate, we have a lot to celebrate because we have 26 functional shelters in this province, with Sarki Bartman being the biggest one in the country. We have 27 shelters for homeless people. And if you do a comparative exercise, and I would like to ask the members of the opposition, go and look what is happening in other provinces, and then you can see that you can benchmark against the Western Cape. The increase for CNDCs, I alerted Member Baku Vos. I was in Genatendal, I was in Vredendal, I was in Maritzburg, I was in Klaarstrom. I see the poverty. But as a former banker, having spent 30 years in banking, one needs to understand that you can only spend what you have. Otherwise, you are going to operate at a deficit. And we are not allowed to operate overdrafts in government, despite the fact that some of the poorly run municipalities and national government, provincial departments manage and run overdrafts. One must be, you can only work with the money that you have. And to that end, we have actually engaged. We started talking to NPOs in November last year already. Last Friday at 2:30 until 4, we met with at least 20 NPOs online, and they agreed and they said, Minister, with your support, we're going to put something in place so that we can keep this sector afloat in this province because it is collapsing everywhere around the country. The shortage of social workers is very real, but as you would have heard, that with the cuts, we would need to prioritize. The department, all the chief directors, regional directors have sat down, and we are now sitting down as a team and saying, where is the need greatest? However, Honourable Deputy Speaker, the number of informal settlements that have emerged over the last 2 years has made it increasingly difficult because in social development, if you understand it, areas are mapped out. NPOs work certain areas and social development work certain areas. And with this new development of informal settlements popping up, there is extra pressure on our social workers to go in and to serve. So on the question, Member Baku Vos, hunger and food insecurity is very real. I think last year, the 53 million we allocated, the additional money local government allocated, wasn't to celebrate or to brag. It was a direct response to the inability of the national government to deal with what was a crisis which we had alerted them to. We raised the red flags. Similarly with the homeless, under level 4 and 5, there were regulations saying all homeless people had to be housed in facilities and that food would be provided through a national contract. Well, that national contract was a mere 50 million. And within 4 weeks, it had run out. What were we to do as a province? We couldn't sit back and watch our people suffer. We had to come up with a plan. So we didn't do it to brag or celebrate. We did it to address a need that existed. And sadly, that regulation has resulted in what we see now on the streets in terms of homelessness, because it has come with many unintended consequences that we need to deal with. In terms of child-headed households, we are working closely with all stakeholders. We have established, despite Home Affairs being completely dysfunctional, we have established a good working relationship with key players there, and they support the department directly to assist us to get birth certificates for children so that we can get them in school. I also need to alert the members that they are not only social development social workers. There are social development workers in the Department of Health, in the Department of Education, and in some other departments. So if there is an issue in schools, normally the school social workers, Department of Education, social workers would be alerted. If there is a need for a referral, the referral would come to DSD. So I think that is also another area that we are going to deliberate on as to how we can improve our efficiencies in that area. In terms of gender-based violence, I think it's important if you look at, I think, I don't know if it was the Honorable August, but someone indicated that we've got the highest rates. I just very quickly want to, I've got it on my phone because I prepared and I did my homework for this engagement. The Stats SA talks about femicide, Stats SA 2017, femicide rates across South African provinces. First is the Eastern Cape, second was the Northern Cape, Free State, KwaZulu-Natal. It goes on, and here, this is exactly, let me tell you, the ever experience of partner violence is highest in the Eastern Cape for physical violence, while Northwest had the highest rates of sexual violence ever experienced. And on that list, it is Eastern Cape, the Northwest Province, Mpumalanga, Free State, and then the Western Cape. So die boek moet seker ons bo gelees, maar daar's nou 'n probleem. It is my duty to alert this House to facts because it is easy to come and peddle misinformation. This is a public platform. Members of the public are listening in and tuned in, and we have a duty to be honorable and to speak the truth and nothing but the truth. Honourable Deputy Speaker, number 3, the Honourable August. I've already dealt with the issue of the dysfunction that exists at the National Department of Public Works. I appreciate the fact that Minister De Lille made the effort to provide us with the 6 properties. However, the debacle in the department left a lot to be desired. Honourable Brinkhuis, I agree completely with you. It is a crisis. I've raised a red flag. However, we are reliant on funding that comes from national. And if there is a disconnect between the National Department of Social Development and National Treasury, we unfortunately bear the brunt. So social workers for school children, I have covered that. We have social workers in education, and they serve as a referral pathway. Honourable Plato, thank you for your inputs. I think that they were meaningful. They address the issue. But it would be remiss of me, Deputy Speaker, to say that we are facing challenging and tough times in the year ahead. The ECD migration, the function shift happens on Friday. That cohort will be moved to education. However, we have a statutory duty. There are certain pieces of work that the department is compelled to do in terms of the Children's Act, the Older Persons Act, and I understand more than anyone else the impact of substance abuse and gender-based violence, having personally experienced it. I think the issue of the Fritz scandal, I cannot comment at this stage because I was not in that department at that time. The Premier has led in terms of the responses, but I can assure you that if there's any woman or any man or anyone who feels the need to step forward and speak, then I think people should be afforded that. But I need to also alert this august House. I stand here as a survivor of gender-based violence, and I said it once before. I only found my voice when the perpetrator died. So please do spare a thought for those women, especially young women who are affected. It takes courage to stand up and to say, me too. And so I think we should not play politics, but understand the trauma and the secondary trauma that not only victims, but perpetrators too experience. And so we remain.
Deputy Speaker, I had my hand up. I'm not sure if you can allow me platform to speak to the
Honourable
Minister.
Member, do you have a point of order? I didn't see your hand up. I see it now.
My hand is up, Deputy Speaker. It's not a point of order. I would like to know if the Minister can take a question.
I will ask the Minister.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, no, I think I've
No.
overrun in terms of time. I will engage the Honourable Member outside of this session.
Noted.
But I think it's important that we must acknowledge that gender-based violence is a scourge. However, the safety plan and the area-based teams, and I still don't think most of the members understand the concept, but I was part of the Swartland launch, and DSD, SAPS, the NPA, everyone sits in that meeting. I was out in Klaarstrom on Monday evening. I was in Prince Albert yesterday at the request of SAPS to get the area-based team up and running to address the issues of substance abuse, school dropouts, teenage pregnancy, crime, and. And I think it's a fundamental mind shift that needs to happen. It's not departmental any longer. It is a transversal whole of government approach. And I also want to say it requires a whole of society approach. And having sat in that chair, Honourable Deputy Speaker, for 5 years, I still maintain that the mudslinging that happens in this House does not benefit the citizens of this province. What we should be talking to is how we are going to work together to improve the lived experiences of people in this province. But instead, what do? We don't alert the minister or the department. We wait for an opportunity to come into this House and grandstand as if it is meant to score brownie points. And you know what that does to the electorate? They lose faith and trust in elected public servants, because as far as they're concerned, we are perceived to be wasting their time and boosting our own agendas. So I do want to ask members, let's think consciously about your contribution to any debate that you make and how you show up. Do you show up authentically in the interest of your constituents, or do you show up wearing your jacket that is driven by the politics of the stomach? I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on vote 7. I will then ask that the officials who are going to be joining for the human settlement debate, please come into the seating area here. Thank you very much. Minister, are you waiting for special guests? They're all up there. They're going to stay up. That's fine. They have no problem. If you are ready, then we can start. Thank you very much. The Secretary will read the second order of the day.
Debat oor begrotingspos 8, menslike nedersettings, Wes-Kaapse begrotingswetsontwerp.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. I now recognize Honourable Minister Simmers.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, Honourable Premier, Honourable Cabinet members present, but also logged in virtually, members of the House present and logged in virtually, our department's special guest, Honourable Deputy Speaker, for whom it is also their first time to be in the legislature, so I do welcome them as well. But also our multitude of guests that are logged in via the innovative ways in which this Parliament has sought to reach the people of the Western Cape. Speaker, at various intervals in life, opportunities are presented to us. The question that would almost always accompany this opportunity is, will you actually seize this opportunity? This is a pertinent question, particularly from a human settlements perspective. Speaker, of Deputy Speaker, hierdie is uiters belangrik, want uit 'n menslike nedersettingsoogpunt word geleenthede gebied en geskep om individue en hul geliefdes se omstandighede daadwerklik en op 'n grootskaalse wyse te verander. Het sy dit 'n tipe behuisingsgeleentheid is, het sy dit 'n eienaarskapsgeleentheid is, of dalk 'n bemagtigingsgeleentheid. Die eindresultaat is dat hierdie geleenthede drastiese verbetering teweegbring. So, from the outset, I'd like to make it known that the 2022-23 Human Settlements budget of 2,414,805,000 rand is a budget with an opportunity for you. This means that, just as in the past, and more so moving forward, this budget's primary purpose
is to ensure that the lives of our people are improved. Deputy Speaker, as a department that is mandated for the delivery of human settlements, and this being integrated human settlements, I am pleased to inform this House that during the 2022-23 financial year, 11,210 housing opportunities will be delivered. This will consist of 2,747 sites and 8,463 top structures. Dit beteken dat meer as 11,000 kwalifiserende begunstigdes die geleentheid gebied gaan word om in verbeterde en veiliger omstandighede wat waardigheid teweegbring te leef. Die individue wie vir hierdie geleenthede geteken word is bejaardes en dus nou persone wat 60 jaar en ouer is, individue met 'n gesertifiseerde mediese ongeskiktheid, persone wat 15 jaar en langer op die behuisingswaglys is, agterplaasbewoners wat 'n unieke prioriteit is vir ons Wes-Kaap, huise waar kinders die hoof is en ek moet benadruk, hier wag ons vir die duidelikheid van die nasionale regering wat 'n huishouding is wat deur 'n kind gebestuur word en natuurlik militêre veterane. Ek is uiters belangrik om ook hier te noem dat ons slegs die agentes van die militêre veterane se huise bou. Alle prosesse word deur die Nasionale Departement van Militêre Veterane afgehandel. It's vital to point out that as much as this is our criteria, it all starts with you being registered on your housing demand database. Over the last few days, the National Minister of Human Settlements, Minister Kubai, announced various revised subsidy quantums as it pertains to both the Human Settlements Development Grant and the Informal Settlement Upgrade Partnership Grant. These will take effect on the 1st of April, and given the increases in these quantums, it will have an impact on our targets, which will have to be adjusted downwards. Deputy Speaker, it's important to point out that the majority of our projects are continued from the previous years, and the bulk capacity would have been taken into account when they were approved. Bulk infrastructure is one of the biggest challenges we face, as it is an inhibiting factor when it comes to new projects. Now, as a forward-thinking and solution-oriented government, we view every challenge as an opportunity. It is for this reason that I am pleased to inform this House that the numbers will be increased in the wake of our advances planning into unlock opportunity, as I will indicate here today. Deputy Speaker, the reality of the Western Cape is that there are currently approximately 568,000 residents on the Western Cape Housing Demand Database who have expressed a need to be assisted by the state for a housing opportunity. And I need to emphasize a housing opportunity, not a house, for those that are logged in. Given that the Western Cape has the highest employment rate of just under 70%, many of these residents would not qualify for a fully state-subsidized housing opportunity, as their household income would likely exceed the R3,500 threshold. State assistance, however, is still required, as many of these residents have a household income that ranges from R3,501 to R22,000. Dit is waar bekostigbare behuising 'n kritieke rol speel. Want die Wes-Kaap het 'n unieke uitdaging om op te los. To address this unique challenge, we focus on two programs, namely FLISP and social housing. In terms of FLISP, Deputy Speaker, there has been a huge demand for FLISP in the Western Cape. In fact, 3,695 applications have been approved by my department since April 2020 to date. This was against a target of 1,800 between the 2020-21 and 21-22 financial years. At this point, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Mr. and Mrs. John and Tamara Norkier. Okay, thank you. A lovely young couple who accessed the FLISP subsidy. They received an amount of R49,000 and have been living in Forest Village since November 21. And I would love to quote Ms. Norkier in this regard. She said, "We are really happy with our home. The subsidy has helped to significantly reduce our bond repayment. There is nothing better than not having to live in someone else's backyard. If more people are able to access FLISP, we will have fewer backyard dwellers." Close quote, en baie dankie vir u quote. Speaker, for the 2022-23 financial year, we aim to assist 1,478 people. It is for this reason that we welcome the policy amendments to the Finance-Linked Individual Subsidy Program, or FLISP, that has now been delinked. This means that it is no longer just a mortgage-only option, but other sources of finance may be utilized to acquire a property. And applicants with a household income of between 3,501 to 22,000 rand can access FLISP, or as it will now be called, Help Me Buy a Home. What are these options that can now be accessed by our possible qualifying beneficiaries? Firstly, housing loans that are granted or guaranteed by a pension or provident fund. An unsecured housing loan from any registered lender. Housing loans granted or guaranteed by a cooperative or community-based savings scheme, or as we commonly like to call it, stokvels. And lastly, housing loans supported by employer-based schemes. This is a significant shift and a game changer for the affordable housing market. We regard this overall as a true victory for all citizens, but more so for the residents of this province, as we have been advocating for these amendments for a very long time, and finally it's now a reality. We have already experienced an influx of queries and applications, and for this reason, we have streamlined our processes to ensure that no delays are experienced when we commence on the 1st of April. Oor die volgende paar dae sal daar verder uitgebrei word oor hoe FLISP in die Weskaap toegepas gaan word, sodat daar duidelikheid is om al die onsekerheid wat dalk tans bestaan uit die weg te ruim. Deputy Speaker, I'm also pleased to announce to this House that civil engineering services on our deferred ownership pilot project in the non-Metro Cape Agulhas municipality area have been completed, and that construction is due to commence imminently. Now, for those members that might not be familiar with this project, this innovative initiative seeks to provide not only FLISP units to qualifying beneficiaries, but also to provide an opportunity for those beneficiaries who have fallen short of end-user finance approval. These beneficiaries will be provided an opportunity to take out an option for purchasing a house. Furthermore, the initiative will assist them to improve and rehabilitate their credit score and affordability rating, and this acquired proven property track record will enable them to obtain end-user finance to purchase the property which they have been renting. This is also the ideal moment to mention that we don't work in isolation, but believe in partnerships as a department, as the development of beneficial partnerships remains a critical element for the acceleration of affordable housing. Partnerships with all major banks are in place and are in the process of being improved or revised. A number of other exciting partnerships are being pursued by the department, all of which will assist the department in delivery of its goals and objectives going forward. Now we move to social housing. Deputy Speaker, in die Kaapse Metro het ons verskeie voorbeelde van suksesvolle sosiale behuisingsprojekte. Hierdie sluit onder meer in Anchorage in Glenhaven, Bellville, Regent Villas in Mitchells Plain, Bottasig en die Maitland Mews waar konstruksie onlangs afgeskop het. Duisende inwoners het reeds of sal eersdaags toegang hê tot bekostigbare behuising. And one such social housing beneficiary who is with us in the gallery today is Mrs. Badronisa Joubert, who is visually impaired and was afforded an opportunity to the Anchorage Social Housing Project in Glenhaven, Bellville. I visited Ms. Joubert at the home shortly after they moved in, and the words to me were, and once again with her permission, I quote her, "Minister, I am happy here. I chose Anchorage to assist me in becoming self-sustainable. The dream is owning my own home one day. This place is really comfortable and suited to my needs. We're ecstatic to live here in the Anchorage community." Close quote. Over the next 5 years, we will also see a number of further social housing opportunities in areas such as Woodstock, Salt River, Goodwood, Heideveld, Elsie's Rivier, Mitchell's Plain, and potentially Oranjezicht. It is important to note that these opportunities are at various stages along the development pipeline. I'm happy to add that the first non-metro social housing project, called Mountain Ridge in Dal Yusufat Paal, has been approved by the Social Housing Regulatory Authority and will provide 362 new social housing units. Construction is planned to commence early in the 2022-23 financial year. Furthermore, there are a significant number of new projects in the pipeline in other non-metro leader towns, such as in Stellenbosch, George, and Mossel Bay. We also welcome the National Minister's announcement that the qualification criteria for household income have been amended, and the new bracket is now 1,850 to 22,000 rand gross monthly income. This will, amongst others, enable particularly young graduates and young couples, like we've seen in the crowd, who could not previously access housing opportunities due to earning higher than the previous prescribed household income band, to access these opportunities. Deputy Speaker, hierdie wysigings stel ons beslis in staat om baie meer persone, net soos mevrou Joubert, wat vandag hier met ons is, ook by te staan. Gegewe dat bekostigbare behuisingsgeleenthede ons prioriteit is, sien ons daarna uit om die nuwe wysigings te implementeer. It's been quite unfortunate to note in the media, though, that there are those who are criticizing the various amendments to the policy and suggesting, believe it or not, that we are only assisting middle-income earners. It is prudent that we don't seek relevance by playing with people's lives and spewing misinformation. I'd advise the critics to conduct some research, and please let this be a substantive research sample before engaging in a debate where you are devoid of the facts. But Speaker, informality is also a reality. The upgrading of our informal settlements continues to be a priority for us. In fact, we have identified 50 informal settlements for a variety of upgrade interventions through our ISUPG business plan. This is anchored in a transversal and provincial-wide informal settlements upgrading strategy to enhance, simplify, and accelerate informal settlement upgrading interventions through an innovative, people-centered, and partnership-based approach. A critical point to make out today is that since 2016, Western Cape households have enjoyed the highest rate of access to services compared to the national average. Our province currently has 958 informal settlements, with 527 of those falling within the City of Cape Town region. All of the remaining 431 settlements across the province have been assessed, categorized, ranked, and prioritized per municipality via the department's informal settlements database. We are particularly focused on incremental housing, and more so for residents in our informal settlements. This places us in a strategic position to eliminate the growing backlog for houses and for basic municipal services. Initially, Deputy Speaker, we conceptualized 2 options, and this has now increased to 4, which is being considered. One particular option that we are leaning towards is the provision of a site that has a starter house with a 40 square meter frame structure for future extension. Not discounting any of the other 3 options, but at this stage, we are of the view that this option will make a significant impact in the improvement of the living conditions of those who are residing in informal settlements. But how does this starter house look that we are conceptualizing? Firstly, a total area of 20 square meters will be under roof and enclosure. It will have a bathroom, which is enclosed with a toilet, and provision on the concrete floor space will be made for a shower. There will be a washtrough for multi-purpose use, obviously part of the concrete floor, and the hard standing floor finishes the balance of the 40 square meter, and there is a ready board only also. So just as with any of our other programs, this new initiative will also have a set criteria. Speaker, today I'm also pleased to have 62-year-old Mrs. Myrtle Verrooy with us. Now, Speaker, Ms. Verrooy is visually impaired and wheelchair bound. Now, in 2009, I don't know if the members can recall, She lived in horrendous conditions in informal settlements in the Blue Downs area. It was broadly covered by various media houses, all for the wrong reasons, obviously. And when I was informed of a need, I ensured that immediate action could be taken. Ja, daar was 'n paar uitdagings aangaande ID-dokumente en 'n paar ander kwessies. Maar ek wil vandag aan alle beamptes van my departement wat verseker het dat mevrou Verrooy bygestaan kan word, baie dankie sê. Mevrou Verrooy, baie dankie dat u ook vandag met ons kan wees. Toe ons onlangs met die nasionale en adjunkt nasionale minister u woning besoek het, het u van my vertel hoe lekker dit en bly u is dat u eintlik veilig voel en dat u lewe sonder vrees. Deputy Speaker, but also allow me to announce today that our individual subsidy applications will be opening on the 1st of April. Some of you might have noticed the communication that was issued yesterday, and I hope you do share it as far as wide as possible, members, because this subsidy is aimed at residents with a household income of between 0 and 3,500 rand, and allows one to firstly buy an existing house, buy a house on a plot and plan basis, or to finish an incomplete house. The subsidy quantum or amount is just over 200,000 and is paid not to the beneficiary, but to a seller, a conveyancer, a financier, or contractor, depending on the case that you state on your application. As there is a limited budget, assistance with this budget is only provided once a year and is allocated on a first-come, first-served basis. And we are envisioning to assist 1,600 possible beneficiaries. Priority will be given to applicants who are elderly or have special needs, particularly people living with a medically certified disability. And I'd therefore like to encourage those who would like to apply to urgently do so when we start on the 1st of April. How this is also not assisting the poorest of the poor, only the uninformed, so-called community activists and organizations that claim to represent communities would know. Gaan mense verstand te bowe, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, this is a budget with an opportunity for you. But for you means ownership, which is a key driver of this provincial government. Because we believe that ownership is true empowerment, and if there's one opportunity I refuse to miss, then it's the opportunity to assist our residents in becoming fully fledged and legal homeowners of their properties. Sadly, this is a privilege that many of our people never had in their lives. Deputy Speaker, dit is een van die redes waarom ek vandag vir meneer en mevrou Kooste van Louwel, Vredenburg genooi het om deel te wees van hierdie verrigtinge. Toe ek verneem het dat hulle as 'n paartjie op Vredenburg alreeds meer as 50 jaar gewag het op hul titelakte, het ek gesê daar moet so spoedig as moontlik 'n plan vir hierdie paartjie gemaak kan word. En op 15 April vir hierdie jaar kon ons uiteindelik die oorhandiging doen. En ek sal nooit mevrou Kooste se woorde aan my vergeet nie. En ek moet sê, gegee haar ouderdom, was sy ook baie hups op die dag toe sy hierdie woorde geuit het. En ek haal haar aan. Vandag is ons ontsettend bly en dankbaar teenoor die Here dat hy ons gespaar het om hierdie dag te sien en te ervaar. Ons het nooit gedink dat die dag sal kom waar ons titelakte in ons hande sou hê nie. Want die gewag het lank geduur. Vandag is ons trots en baie bly dat dit wel hier is. Hierdie beteken baie vir ons. Dis nou ons huis, ons grond en niemand kan dit van ons wegneem nie. Deputy Speaker, the differences we are making in people's lives is tangible and lifelong. This is our continued commitment as a department to the qualifying residents of the Western Cape. For the 2022-23 financial year, our aim is to empower even more residents through the handing over of a title deed. Despite the national government stopping the title deed restoration grant, we will continue to hand over title deeds. In fact, we will place this powerful document in the hands of no less than 10,150 qualifying beneficiaries during the new financial year, so that more residents can be empowered like the Koostes. Deputy Speaker, this is part of the reason why this is a budget with an opportunity for you. Deputy Speaker, in taking it a step further, and as part of being innovative. Our officials are currently investigating which systems can be adopted and or created to ensure that when beneficiaries receive their fully state subsidized homes, they receive title deeds at the same time. And can I say there is 1 or 2 sites where this is already busy happening proudly. Ons wil ons mense ten volle bemagtig en werk strategies daaraan om hierdie titelakteplan 'n werklikheid te maak. Unlike the ANC and the EFF, we are not in the business of seeking to disempower our people by taking their land away. We are empowering our people by giving them ownership. As challenged before, the members of these parties should voluntarily actually give up all their property to the state so that we can see what exemplary leadership looks like. Deputy Speaker, it is common knowledge, particularly since I've mentioned it in this house before, that we're not for the Western Cape, where we have an expanded unemployment rate of 30.4%. Our country's unemployment rate would today, in all likelihood, be out of control. The next best performing province is the ANC-led Free State, where the expanded unemployment rate sits at 44.2%. Deputy Speaker, this year we are once again supporting the efforts of this Western Cape government to get our people working. Through this budget, we will ensure that 1,000 jobs are facilitated within the built environment. But it does not stop there, because we will make sure that a combined minimum of 50% of the infrastructure grants, in our case it's the HSDG and the new ISUPG grants, will be paid to HDI contractors. Their empowerment and support is of utmost importance, as it is a known fact that these entities help to ensure that our people are employed. Deputy Speaker, this leads now to innovation. And in this province, when we identify opportunities that will assist in contributing to the overall well-being of our people, we seize it and immediately start initiating a process that ultimately leads to implementation. One of these initiatives is our Western Cape Asset Finance Reserve for Human Settlements. The Western Cape is the only province in the entire country to have such a fund. This is a fund that is not pocketed by friends, cronies and associates. No. The funds are reinvested so that residents of this province can benefit. This reserve is self-funded from, amongst others, the selling of FLISP units or sites and the selling of business or government sites in our IRDP projects. All revenue collected in excess of the department's revenue target is transferred to this fund to ensure that revenue derived from the investment of the HSDG grant will be able and available for future capital investments in human settlement projects. This Western Cape Reserve has several applications. The money is used to improve the insufficient municipal infrastructure grant allocations for municipalities. The money is used to assist municipalities to unlock the value of strategic assets, including land and buildings. The money is used for job creation initiatives, including developing business or industrial hubs and many other initiatives. And the money is used to provide co-funding to municipalities to access the regional bulk infrastructure grant funding, where the condition is that the municipalities must co-fund from its own resources on an amount equal to the grant, and must only be utilized to unlock affordable housing opportunities, including building FLISP units to sell and funding deferred ownership units, where the sale will only take effect after a minimum of 2 years. Hierdie Weskaapse Reservefonds versterk munisipaliteite sodat hulle hul infrastruktuur kan ontwikkel en op 'n vlak kan kry waar meer inwoners veral toegang kan kry tot bekostigbare behuisingsgeleenthede. Last Friday, the National Minister of Human Settlements addressed the media about some of the policy changes mentioned earlier. One of the items she mentioned were, and I quote her, digitization of the beneficiary list to make it more reliable, transparent, easily accessible, and avoid fraud and corruption, close quote. This is commendable and a step towards the fourth industrial revolution. But once again, Deputy Speaker, it's a leaf taken out of the book of the Western Cape, as we have launched our WCG app in March 2020 already. This app ensures that our citizens can easily access information on government housing assistance and register for the first time or update their details on the housing demand database. With our continued commitment to incorporate technology, we're in the process of developing a mobile reporting app to enhance the reporting process that enables officials to report in real time from the field, to digitize contact management documents on the My Content system to allow for easy retrieval of documents such as agreements, and to improve the Western Cape Housing Demand Database to enable municipalities to effectively manage the registration of housing demand by citizens and to enhance the executive dashboard that reports on projects currently. In the 2022-23 financial year, the focus will be on enhancing the interaction with citizens through digitizing our subsidy application process with a focus on FLISP subsidies and transfer of title deeds, as well as developing a citizen complaints system. Die begroting bied ons die geleentheid om baie meer effektief te wees en alles dit tot die voordeel van ons inwoners in die Weskaap. Deputy Speaker, as part of my conclusion, I'd like to inform this House that after today, I will be embarking on a roadshow to various districts and municipalities to present this budget, their allocations, as well as engaging them on some of the quantum amendments as announced by the National Minister. The Western Cape Human Settlements and Infrastructure team forms a transparent and engaging department. We believe that we are stronger and better when we work together, particularly when we work with a critical partner such as a local government. And at this stage, I'd like to thank my acting HOD, Ms. Pia Marisela, my CFO, and the rest of the senior management team for their unwavering support and commitment to changing the lives of our people. But to also thank all staff in the department for all the hard work and contributions that they are doing to ensure that we are working effectively and efficiently. I'd also have to thank my head of ministry and my ministry staff for the work which they also do to ensure that we stay on course to our road that we have envisioned when I became minister in 2019. And finally, and let me be clear, Deputy Speaker, with this budget, we remain committed to accelerating human settlements delivery while promoting social inclusion through the development of integrated, resilient, safe, and sustainable human settlements in an open opportunity society as we build the Western Cape of the future together for you. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I now recognise Honourable Lily. Honourable Lily. I see you are online.
Thank you very much. Deputy Speaker, or beautiful Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker.
You may proceed.
Deputy
Honourable Lily, you're on mute. You may proceed.
Yes, I'm having some, I'm having these difficulties, okay? At the height of the hard lockdown to contain the spread of COVID-19, thousands of poor residents, including young people who have displaced from the apartments they rented, moved to establish new informal settlements in unoccupied land across many municipalities in the province. This was in response to many job losses, which rendered many unable to keep up with the rising rental fees. Our people live in inhuman conditions due to poverty and high inequality. Those who were fortunate moved to the backyards in their families. Sorry. Speaker.
Honourable Lily. Is there a problem?
Our people in human, yes, those who were fortunate moved to the backyards in their family homes. This is the state of human settlements in the Western Cape. These are the real lived experiences of the people. The dissidents of the victims of forced removals of the apartheid remain entrapped in the townships on the outskirts of the cities, as far away as possible from the places of opportunities. The department on its annual performance plan has stated that the housing backlog is now more than 500,000. It has acknowledged these places as challenge on the state to assist these people with human opportunities, with housing opportunities. However, the department has stated that due to the diminishing budget envelope, the department was forced to reprioritize its beneficiary selection criteria and reserve the subsidized houses only the most vulnerable in society. The focus will now be placed on 1, the elderly, 60 and above. 2, people living with medical certified disabilities. 3, those longest 15 years and longer on the waiting list. 4, backyard dwellers only for new greenfield projects. And 5, approved military veterans. Speaker, what about children-headed households? Why they are not prioritized? Another worrying factor is the project for backyard dwellers only in greenfield projects. What about the backyard dwellers in Kaili, Chanyanga, Delft, and Mitchell's Plain? I am concerned with the statement the department has made in the where it said, and I quote, the Western Cape is unique as approximately 70% of its citizens are employed. It is against the backdrop that we will be making a concerted effort in the 2022-23 financial year to focus our energies on the affordable housing market. The affordable housing market comprises of those individuals who earn too much to qualify for a fully subsidized houses, but earn too little to access a home loan or mortgage. This is a wrong diagnosis and exposes, it's a close quote, misspeak. This is a wrong diagnosis and exposes the direction the DA is taking with regards to human settlement provision. This same diagnosis has influenced the City of Cape Town's draft integrated human settlement sector plan. The DA and its municipalities are moving away from the non-financed linked subsidies. The housing delivery for the poor is no longer a priority for the DA. As the ANC, we demand the continued focus of housing delivery for the poor in the Western Cape. This department acknowledges that access to a housing opportunity promotes safety, well-being, and dignity for our residents. This is an important principle of human settlement, as the opportunities we deliver have a great future impact on the communities we serve. These communities should include the poor, especially those in informal settlements. In this respect, the ANC welcomes the nearly R500 billion allocated by the national government in the informal settlement upgrades partnership grant for provinces. The department and the MEC must tell us what are the plans to develop houses for the poor who are trapped in the temporary relocation areas, which have since become permanent settlements in the province. Despite their housing needs, the budget for administration program has been decreased. The budget for housing needs, research and planning has been decreased. The budget for human asset management has been decreased. The ANC will not support this budget cuts. We welcome the increased budget increase for the housing development, but it must go towards addressing the challenges identified above. The ANC is concerned that there is not a single mention of low-cost housing in the budget speech. The focus is now on social housing, and this shows the DA does not care about the poor, because it is the poor that need low-cost housing, and not just housing sites. While there has been cuts to equitable share, other grants have ensured that there is actually an increase in the human settlements budget. So the DA stop complaining about cuts from the national government and start delivering integrated human settlement to our people. The budget worry for the ANC is that this budget does not mention a single word about the new Department for Infrastructure as announced by the Premier at his COPA. It is the department budgeting and planning is going on as usual in the previous year, or is that the MEC and the department call the Premier's announcement a bluff? The ANC does not support this budget. The ANC wants housing delivery in the inner city and near places of opportunities. The budget does not take serious this need. The Conradi better living model is not enough. The ANC is shocked that the provincial government repeats the same mistake it did in Forest Village, where it built new settlement with no provision for a public ordinary school. This is wrong and will not be supported by the ANC. Human settlements has a vital role in the fighting gangsterism and violent crimes in communities. In the past financial year, the MEC bragged about building houses with stoop to fight crime. This remains laughable. Our demand is for the department to make investment towards improving as accessible in informal settlement, and this department to invest towards improving lighting in the crime hotspot areas. The ANC rejects this budget. I thank you, Mrs. Speaker or Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Order. I now recognise Honourable Makamba Bochia.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, it's quite interesting for the Minister to come here and mislead the House, making false claims that the DA government is providing communities with title deeds. Who are these beneficiaries, and when our people continue to be landless in this province? Deputy Speaker, the Western Cape government's effort to provide for housing remains a disaster, with the housing backlog exceeding 500,000 and not counting people staying in informal settlement who are yet to register for housing. The Department of Human Settlement in the province is failing, and the minister does not want to acknowledge that fact. Every time when people occupy an open space for purposes of providing shelter for themselves, this government wants to claim that they were going to build houses in that particular land, and now their plans have been stalled. Each and every year, this department fails to utilize its budget fully and often end up returning it to the Provincial Revenue Fund or have it allocated to other departments. Deputy Speaker, since 2019, people outside Arcadia Place in Observatory have been residing outside the pavement. These people have now established an informal settlement closer to the main road, which continue to grow. The department should have acted on our call back in 2019 to find that community alternative accommodation after they were evicted from what was previously an old age home building. People staying in Arcadia Place are formerly backyard dwellers from townships such as Nyanga, Philippi, and Kailicha, who could no longer afford rent due to unemployment and lack of opportunities to sustain their livelihoods. The numbers, Deputy Speaker, have since increased as a result of the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the area is now fully fledged informal settlement. People of Danone, Deputy Speaker, and Kosovo have been promised to be reallocated to less congested parcels of land since the beginning of COVID-19 pandemic. We're told that each of them will be reallocated before the end of 2020. It is now 2022 and the department is still scrubbing the surface and not sure about its next step. If the provision of housing in the province will continue to move pace of a snail, people will continue to lose hope in the DA-led government and continue to occupy open lands. The reason for the increase in informal settlement in this province, Deputy Speaker, owed to the incapability of the Provincial Housing Department. The department must speed up its processes of building houses for people. The reason why others do not even apply is because they do not have hope that they will end up being provided as decent house under this government and in this lifetime. So the solution is just to take the next unoccupied and available land. Due to these failures of the department, Deputy Speaker, the EFF will not be in support of this vote. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable August.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, South Africa has a housing crisis. This is a fact. The Western Cape have a housing crisis and Cape Town has a status quo crisis. This government and has done everything in its power to ensure that the city remains inaccessible to citizens that would greatly benefit from low-cost inner-city housing. In 2021, there was a housing backlog of 369,000 applications in the metro and 225,000 applications outside the metro. Speaker, many opportunities were given to the provincial government to show people of this province that they care about spatial integration, that they oppose apartheid spatial planning, and that they are working hard for the almost 600,000 people in the Western Cape to have a home. As a reminder to this House, it is under this very DA government that Cape Town has been named the most unequal city in the world, and it is this very government who decides to further gentrify the city centre by pushing poor people of colour to the furthest ends of Cape Town. This government decided to underspend 46 million of its 2019-20 human settlements budget, and it is this government who willfully decides to maintain the order that Cape Town should remain uninhabitable to labourers, factory workers, artisans, craftsmen employed in the city. The Premier stated in his 21 SOPA that 13,000 low-cost units will be built across the province, and at the current MEC for housing confirmed that they are at various stages of development. Considering this, currently in George, an entire development of state-built housing standing vacant and the province has a worrisome backlog of title deeds. The snail space that human settlements is taking in developing housing units is telling of its true intention to correct the housing ordeal of the past. I'm asking this government to prioritize the rollout of low-cost housing units on well-located land parcels in the city centre and expedite the building of affordable homes in the rest of the province. We hope that the newly formed infrastructure department will see that 22 ushers in change to priority when it comes to giving people Western Cape a dignified home. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. I now recognise Honourable Brinkhays.
Thank you very much, the Honourable Deputy Speaker. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The poor oversight by the Western Cape government contributed to escalating the cost of a unit in District 6 worth 400,000 to 4 million rand. The province's poor oversight allowed the construction of 107 units to be built on clay without proper foundations. It was based on this reason why the Kalam Construction, who built the first phase, refused to be considered to build the phases 2 and 3. There is no proper foundation, which means the structure may collapse in time to come. The department also failed to properly engage with claimants on phase 3, especially the elderly and those with special needs. These claimants must now use 2 staircases to the units. The victims of the Group Areas Act have waited for 20 years to return to District 6. This is worse than demolishing of homes and the forced removals. District 6 was a hub of resistance and the memorialization thereof is nowhere to be seen, which is also being hidden by the Department of Cultural Affairs. Al-Jamaa calls for the 40 hectares of land stolen to be confiscated without compensation, so the 60,000 residents forcibly removed from District 6 can benefit from intergenerational wealth. Further developments in District 6 should exclude white developers, as they were in cahoots with the apartheid government to declare District 6 a white area. We further note with concern that this budget does not address the urgent need for low-cost housing for the poor. Thus, despite national government's increase from grants for human settlements, we are, however, concerned about the province's cut in the budget to municipalities for housing projects. I thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you very much. I now recognize Honourable Maseko.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, Premier Cabinet Ministers, Leader of the Opposition, and honorable members, and also I would love to welcome the department's guests to this budget debate. Deputy Speaker, Minister Simmers presented to us the budget that gives hope to our communities, a budget that cares for our communities, a budget that gives safety, a budget for education, and budget for dignity. After he did give us the budget that represents all that, then Member Lily came in to debate. Member Lily, inequality, for us to really champion it, there's no way that we can move from the corruption. The more we fight corruption, and if you can help us to fight the corruption from national, we are going to be able to deal with inequality. And I know you love oversight. You will definitely attend to that from your national colleagues to make sure that they really stop looting so that we can attend to our oversight to fight inequality. Now, the housing backlog, Member Lily, again, we need finance that is in the pockets of your colleagues from national. Attend to that one also again. The child-headed household, Member Lily, you know, it's one of our priorities in the Department of Human Settlements. And I'm getting a little bit worried that as we talk to the department, as we engage with them, it seems like you don't listen to the department as we again and again mention the priority list for the Department of Human Settlements who have to be prioritized for the housing. The backyard dwellers. Minister Simmers, when he took over from Minister Madikizela, the first change or addition to the priority list was the backyard dwellers. I'm just surprised that Member Lily now doesn't know that the backyard dwellers is one of the priority for human settlements. But again, it's a free information that I will give to you of who are the priorities. The informal settlements, I will attend to it when I also respond to Member
Honourable Member,
Bojo.
just take your seat for a second. I see there's a hand up, please. Honourable Kondlo, do you have a point of order? My apologies, I didn't see that.
Sekela Somlomo, ngingathanda ukukucela indoba umamelisise uzame ucela umama osesihlalweni othethayo ngoku angathethi ngqo tata okanye ilungu lalendlu elingutata uAndilelili athethe naye edlula kuwe njengesekela Somlomo. Inkosi.
Honourable Mr. Secretary, I have no idea what the point of order was. It was too late for me to converse. So is it just, can I have a second, please? Unfortunately, Honourable Member, I did not have time to translate that as quickly as I didn't have my translation on. Can I just clarify what that point of order and whether it was a point of order as a ruling? Honourable Maseko, can you assist me, please?
Honourable. Deputy Speaker, she was mentioning the point of order that I must speak through you, of which is right. I was
Okay, noted.
So
Thank you.
acknowledge that.
Honourable, no, please don't shout at me over the microphone. Honourable Nkondlo, I have received the translation that you've asked to speak into the microphone. I have asked Member Maseko to do that. Thank you very much. You caught me off guard there for a second. You may proceed, Honourable Member.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, through you, Honourable Member Makamba Boja mentioned the issue of the title deeds. The national government stopped the grant for the title deeds, and it is this government that is going beyond to make sure that there's an allocation for the title deeds, because we do care about our communities in Western Cape, and title deeds gives dignity to our communities. So we will continue, irrespective of the national government that has cut that grant. Although, again, they say they champion the needs of the poorest of the poor, as they mention it. The issue of the land invasion campaign through you, Honorable Member Makamba Boja, is the EFF ripple effect that is causing the backlog of about 600,000. The more their campaign of land invasion happens, we are going to have the backlog. So the honorable member, through you, Deputy Speaker, cannot come here and say that we are not, as the Department of Human Settlement in Western Cape, we are not fighting the backlog. The more we do deliver, the more they create that demand. And still, we are performing more than any other province in this country. If what I'm saying, Deputy Speaker, is not the truth, they need to mention which province that is championing human settlements than this province. Now, Honorable Member Agos, through you, Deputy Speaker, really, 2019 during the elections, it became the land invasion in Waterskloof. The Good Party went there to have the meetings, and there is a land invasion now that the community, they need the services. That demand was created by the Good Party for the votes. Now, again, that political weapon that is being used, that not this department or this government doesn't give the services, when the demand is being created using the housing, it has to stop if they want to see this department eradicating the backlog of the housing. Now, they cannot come and grandstand here and say that there's no backlog that has been reduced while they create the demand. Again, they create the demand, and you have the ANC that is looting the country and say this department has to make sure that we eradicate the demand that they create. That is not going to be possible unless they take responsibility. Now, Member Branges, through you, Deputy Speaker, the District 6 Honorable Member is a mandate, the mandate of the Land Reform, Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Restitution. This is now the mandate of the Department of Human Settlements. In fact, as the standing committee, we were giving a hand to make sure that, because they failed to build about 100 and something houses for more than 10 years, we're saying we champion housing, allocate a certain amount from the ground of the restitution so that those claimants, they can have the housing, giving the dignity to that community. Those houses that are being built on the clay, not this department. This department doesn't do that. This is Western Cape. We champion what we say we are doing. So the national, you can, through your colleague, through you, Deputy Speaker, ask the question, maybe we'll get the answer. Why did they build on top of the clay? And if there is clay, we do an oversight in this parliament we would have seen the other risk layer, because where they build the houses, we go and visit.
Honourable member, just take your seat. Honourable Makamba Watia, what's your point of order?
Deputy Speaker, my point of order is I just want to find out, can the member give us information on the said agenda about what the DA has done instead of responding to our statements? Now she's taking
Honourable
the role of
Makamba
a
Watia,
minister.
that's not a point of order. That's not a point of order. If you're asking whether the member will take a question, the member may answer that, but the member may not engage. Over to you, Honourable Member. Are you going to take a question from Honourable Makamba Watia?
Ma'am, no, Deputy
No.
Speaker will attend the standing committee. We can engage.
Thank
there.
you, but please take your seat. I see Honourable August. What's your point of order?
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The chairperson is misleading the House to say that Good has created this backlog by saying
Honourable Member.
that there was political meetings at this specific place. I have
Honourable
no
Member,
knowledge
point
of
of
it,
order.
and she's misleading this House.
Honourable Member, that's not a point of order. The Honourable Member may continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker. Let me say what this department did and what is it that is going to do. I rise confidently in support of the Human Settlements budget allocation of 2022-2023 of over 2.4 billion. The Western Cape Department of Human Settlements budget vote 8 represents a developmental process that is presented by two wide-ranging categories, namely the Human Settlement Program cycle and the Human Settlement Project cycle. That is the program and the project cycle. This budget provides a synopsis of the challenges, intricacies, and dilemmas identified in the human settlement ecosystem and proceeds to present innovative recommendations on solutions for each of these. It also contains the phases, steps, and anticipated outcomes for strategic plan and human settlements annual performance plan, and lists the solutions related to each program, which includes improved efficiencies, livable neighborhoods, access to adequate housing, and empowerment opportunities for citizens in the Western Cape, and security of tenure through home ownership. Housing in South Africa continues to be a mammoth task and a great challenge. The last financial year saw the provincial department being challenged by two pandemics, that of COVID-19 and the ever-present corruption inherent in the ANC-run national government. Deputy Speaker, history directed that when we evaluate the human settlements demand on our beneficiary database, you will see it is mostly based on income statistics only, and the assumption from our municipalities that all qualifying households on the database within the qualifying income brackets are in need of housing. The hope from municipalities that the allocation for housing to their respective municipalities will increase, but the reality is that this is not possible. State capture and the looting has cost this country over 250 billion, and with less than half of this money, we would have been able to eradicate the housing and title deeds backlogs in this province. But despite this, Deputy Speaker, the Department of Human Settlements has not only stood behind its goal of delivering on its mandate to the citizens of the Western Cape, but has also promoted jobs, safety, and well-being for all. Deputy Speaker, when we build, the department has empowered the building contractors. The department has empowered historically disadvantaged individuals, women, youth contractors, as well as small, medium, and micro enterprises through its projects. This highlights how the department has ensured that every cent it spends goes towards the creation not only of housing, but of jobs as well. The department has also partnered with the private and public sector partners to train young and unemployed people in skills relevant to the built environment. Deputy Speaker, the vast majority of the department's budget this year Honorable, through you, Deputy Speaker, Honorable Lily, more than 2.2 billion rand will go towards the housing development grant. But for the reasons I've outlined, this money will create jobs also and education beyond its mandate. When we build in the Western Cape, we do more than just build houses. We build communities. The Department of Transport and Public Works, in partnership with the Department of Human Settlements, have developed the better living model. The model envisions entire new communities being built into the existing urban landscape, maximizing the use of land as they do so. These integrated mixed-use developments will not only include low-cost social housing, but also provide retail spaces, schools, hospitals, and public parks, to name a few. As a result of the model, the Western Cape government will create not just housing, but entire communities built around shared economic and social spaces. We have not just imagined this, Honorable Deputy Speaker, we build it. The Conradi Park development, which is in recent months has seen its first residents take ownership of their properties, currently contains 170 units of social housing. 570 more of these units will be completed this year. But the Conradi Park development will be so much more than just a place for people to live in. Once it is completed, the development will contain 2 affordable schools with space for more than 1,600 learners, a hospital, and retail environments, community spaces to promote the local economy. With projects such as this one, Deputy Speaker, we are building more than houses for those who need them. We are building homes that our citizens can own, cherish, and take pride in. The increases in funding in this budget will ensure that developments such as Conradi Park can be replicated on other sites across the province. These sites will lay the groundwork for the new hubs of economic activity, transforming places such as Melkbosrand, Stellenbosch, and Worcester into centers of affordable housing, which promote social cohesion, as well as economic growth. The new business districts which these areas create will lessen the influx of commuters in the Cape Town metropolitan area, thus reducing travel costs for many citizens. With this budget, Deputy Speaker, we move one step closer to attaining these goals. Over the coming year, the department will also continue to make great strides to improve the delivery of housing to those who most need it. We know that solving the backlog of housing would cost over 100 billion, more money than the entirety of the Western Cape's equitable share. But by increasing the efficiency of our tools, the department will be able to stretch its budget as far as possible and help the highest number of people. Last year, the department developed a mobile app to streamline its services to allow end users to easily access the department's services. I look forward to seeing the ways in which this department will continue to innovate and harness technology to improve its services. This budget also allows the department to continue to bridge the gap in home ownership for those citizens that earn too much to qualify for the Breaking New Ground program, but too little to buy a home outright. The FLEAS program subsidizes the cost of housing for first-time owners and lowers the barrier to entry into the housing market. The provincial department has been instrumental in pushing for the FLEAS program to broaden its criteria for beneficiaries so that more citizens can afford to become homeowners. I can now proudly say that we can now call this program the Help Me Buy a House program. Therefore, unlocking affordable housing opportunities through the FLEAS program is incredibly important if we are to give beneficiaries any chance of owning their own home. FLEAS gives first-time home owners who earn between 3,501 and 22,000 and who have never received government housing support, the capital injection that they need to make owning their own home a reality. Of course, Deputy Speaker, there is always more to be done. We look forward to seeing the department rise to the challenges of the coming financial year. We look forward to the upskilling of municipal councillors in the use of the department's tools so that social housing can be allocated to groups that need it the most. We look forward to the clearing of the title deed backlogs in municipalities across the Western Cape. And of course, we look forward to the completion of developments such as Conradi Park, which will improve the well-being of so many of our communities. Deputy Speaker, it is vital that we in the provincial parliament always push for innovative ways to react to the needs of housing in our communities and to devise sustainable solutions to service delivery challenges. It is vital that we do this because we know that the apathetic ANC-led national government cannot or will not help. This DA-led provincial government has to be innovative enough to give hope to all South Africans. I applaud the Western Cape government for this budget vote and Minister Simmers, as well as this department for their creativity as trendsetters in overcoming the incompetence of national government for the betterment of the Western Cape and its communities. In November, the Standing Committee on Human Settlements heard directly from the District 6 claimants who had already spent so much of their lives dispossessed of their land and now found themselves waiting longer still for housing as a result of incompetency of the National Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development. Just imagine, Honorable Deputy Speaker, what could be done if the national government was as passionate about solving the housing problem in this country as this provincial department is. Yes, we need to acknowledge the challenges of land invasion for queue jumping. We need to acknowledge the challenges of shack farming. We need to acknowledge the challenges of intimidation to an extent of shooting at some of the project sites, the community dynamics, just to name the few of the challenges that are going to need to the whole of the society approach to eradicate this criminal element in all this. But the DA-led Western Cape government has planned for the future. With this budget and together, Deputy Speaker, we will push forward to build innovative ways to improve services to our citizens. We will build communities that are free from the legacy of apartheid special planning. We will build affordable, sustainable housing. And with that housing, we will build resilient, resident-led and engaged communities that will persist for years to come. We will build a province that delivers quality housing to all. We will build this because our citizens have already waited too long. We will build because the national government will not.
Sure.
We also need to look beyond just government. This is why the Western Cape is partnering with the private sector and creating policy solutions that will see affordable housing opportunities in and near economic hubs. The Provincial Inclusionary Housing Policy Framework, the first of its kind for any province, is currently being finalized by the Department of Environmental Affairs and Development Planning and will ensure that mixed housing developments become part of the fabric of the Western Cape special planning. But Deputy Speaker, things are continuing to fall apart at the national government level. The Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, our national landlord, has admitted that at least 1,300 of its own properties have been invaded, and only by January would they have finalized a contract for the issuing of evictions. This means that after the contract has been awarded, only then that eviction notices can be processed. Did that happen? Your guess is as good as mine. With this budget, Deputy Speaker, 11,210 housing opportunities will be delivered. 50% of the Human Settlement Development Grant will be awarded to contractors in targeted groups. 1,000 jobs will be facilitated. 50 informal settlements will be provided with interim engineering services, and some will be upgraded to phase 3. 700 houses will be built using sustainable building technologies, and 10,150 title deeds that will give dignity to our deserving beneficiaries will be handed over. In closing, Deputy, we recognize that there are no simple answers to complex questions, and there are no quick fixes to long-term systematic problems. Housing in South Africa will continue to be a mammoth task and a great challenge, which is why I say again, every department and every sphere of government must play its role, protect its land, and support the dignity of our people while looking beyond our walls to the rest of the society to find innovative ways to give residents every opportunity possible. I want to thank Minister Semas, the acting HOD Maisela, and the Department of Human Settlements for always being available as we engage with them in the committee when we ask those difficult questions on behalf of our constituencies. This financial will not be different, and this financial year will not be different, and the engagements will continue. My appreciation to acting HOD Pilar Maisela, CFO Francois Divet, the senior management and the department at large. Deputy Speaker, the DA supports vote 8. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. I now recognise Honourable Minister Simmers.
Deputy Speaker, eerstens moet ek vir u sê, toe ek nou die lede se insette geluister het, en is bitterlik baie weinig dat ek die Bybel aanhaal in hierdie huis, het ek vir u benadruk vandag. Het ek gedink aan Hosea 4 vers 6, wat sê, en ek gaan het vir u lees, die Afrikaanse vertaling, 1953. My volk gaan ten gronde weens 'n gebrek aan kennis, omdat hulle die kennis verwerp het. En u gaan nou verstaan hoekom ek hierdie Bybelteksvers gekies het. Listening to the members' inputs and statements as part of this speech, I was actually wondering, we provide so much information through the standing committee, obviously for those that attend the standing committee, but it seems that all this knowledge is lost once we start engaging each other in this house. So I'd like to thank Member Maseko firstly as the chairperson for seeking to put the spotlight on certain issues that was raised, but also responding to it effectively and efficiently. And I want to thank Member Maseko for indicating that as part of the undertone of a budget for you, it speaks to hope, it speaks to care, safety, and dignity. So I really want to thank Member Maseko, which is something clearly that the opposition parties in this legislature are totally missing. Want my volk gaan ten gronde weens 'n gebrek aan kennis wat hulle verwerp het, Deputy Speaker. So now let me focus on some of the key aspects touched on by members. To Member Lily, I really wonder if through you, Deputy Speaker, if you've actually read our midterm delivery report that was issued last year. I really wonder. Maar dis nie vir my om te beantwoord nie, dis nie my party nie. The member correctly states the impact of COVID-19 and the fact that people who couldn't afford to pay rent, that were living in backyards in areas like Khayelitsha, ultimately was pushed out and they had to seek another way to ensure that they have a roof over their head. But there's something the member actually fails to touch on when he actually does attend standing committee, Deputy Speaker. When COVID-19 started on the lockdown alert level 5, we have the Rental Housing Tribunal and we issued not 1, not 2, but 3 statements stating that no individual must be or can be evicted in the formal sector and the informal sector. But I think, just like we saw today early on, perhaps through Deputy Speaker, die selfoonopvangs is baie swak hy dag. Die lid was nie bewus daarvan nie. Kom ons vergewe hom daarvoor. But secondly, and this links into yesterday's debate when the honourable member of the EFF, through you, Deputy Speaker, said, and I believe you must still refer to Hansard, that it's not only the EFF, but also the ANC that encouraged people to invade land, close quote. So how can the member today, in this budget, bemoan the status of human settlements, bemoan the fact of new informal settlements, but his party and him indirectly through the speaker are the drivers of these new informal settlements. Dat is dan nou wragtig daarom waar, jy kyk hier elke oggend in die spieël nie. Then the member goes further. I'm going to expand to this. Yes, we are aware that when we talk about backyarders, we are aware of those live in informal areas. But through you, Deputy Speaker, and to our public that are listening, not every person in the backyard will ever qualify for a full state subsidized house. Because my question is, how many of them are actually on the housing demand database? How many of them don't earn more than 3,500 rand? That is something the Honourable Lily seems to miss when he seeks to bring his point across. Furthermore, the Honourable Member Lily, through your Deputy Speaker.
Honourable Minister, if you can just take your seat. Honourable Lily, what's your point of order? Honourable Lily, what's your point of order?
Honourable Speaker, no, all I wanted, Mr. Speaker, is that whether the chairperson, I mean the MEC would take questions.
Honourable Lily, is it a point of order or not? Then I can't actually take your comments any further.
It's a clarity on him, whether is he going to be willing to answer the clarity-seeking question after his speech.
You asked the minister a question, Honourable Lily. If you can just repeat the question. No, let me first find out if the minister is going to answer your question. Minister, are you willing to take a question?
Speaker, the lid moet die staande komitee bywoon.
Okay, no, technically the answer is no. So unfortunately, the minister can continue now, and thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Ek gaan weer herhaal, dis een van die skietende steeroomblikke van die achtbare lid, waar ek in 2019 van wys het. My volkant en grond, die mense gebrek aan kennis, want hulle verwerp dit. Nou hierdie is nou weer eens 'n voorbeeld van waar jy kennis verwerp. Aangaan. Dankie, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, furthermore, the Honourable Member, like so many other of the opposition members, question what is our plan. If they actually listen to the speech, we unpack the monetary value, what we will be seeking to accomplish, and within the standing committee, when we unpack the entire budget, where I should note, the Honourable Lily did arrive 45 minutes late, Honourable Deputy Speaker, so once again, poor reception. We unpacked each and every line item on how we're going to spend this budget. Perhaps the member needs to sensitize himself, Deputy Speaker, what his party member that was actually present, what was discussed at that budget vote. Deputy Speaker,
Minister, please
then I
take your
move now
seat.
to the EFF.
Take a seat, Honourable Sayed.
Chair,
What's your
on
point
a-
of order? Honourable members,
Deputy
order,
Speaker,
please.
on a point of order, can the interim provincial leader of the DA in the Western Cape stick to the topic? I don't think Honourable Lily's attendance is relevant, Deputy Speaker. You
Well,
must stick to the topic, please.
I think in terms of Rule 40, relevance is there on 99.9% of the minister's response. That's 0.01%, Minister. But
Deputy Speaker,
thank you very much. You may proceed.
tongue in cheek, I hope the
Order, order.
ANC 3 valid branches just for the future provincial leader speaking, so they can vote for him.
Minister,
Order,
title
Minister.
this. Minister,
Now I
title
move
this.
to the
Order,
EFF.
members. Okay, then you may proceed.
Now I move to the EFF. Yes, the member touches certain points, but Speaker, Deputy Speaker, how can you for 3 years get the same information wrong? Ek sit erom te dink, ek kan myself nie beantwoord nie. Every time I have to stand up and explain, for the last 5 years and more, this provincial department has, if it hasn't spent 100%, it even exceeded its budget. But the Honourable
Members.
member keeps on persisting, Deputy Speaker, that we give money back. Dalk is 'n verkeerde WhatsApp groep, ek weet nie. Because I think the member is confusing the HSDG grant and the USDG grant, which I've been explaining for the last 3 years. But Deputy Speaker, through you, once again, let's encourage the member to actually attend a Human Settlement Standing Committee to understand what we deal with. The member also makes, through you, Deputy Speaker, mention of certain individuals that have been evicted. And once again, last year, I'm going to give the same response like I did last year. The first port of call is to get to local government to deal with the matter. I'm not the super minister. I'm not Superman. I can't fly in the blue cape in this case and rescue the people. I respect the rule of law, Deputy Speaker. And I respect the rules of this
Deputy
House.
Speaker.
Deputy Speaker.
Minister, please take your seat. Honourable Kambabotia, what's your point of order?
Deputy Speaker, can the minister be constructive in his responses to our statements and stop being personal? This is not a personal attack. This is a matter of urgency because we're talking about lives of people who are landless in here. He must stop talking about being a Superman. He's not a Superman. We're not talking to him directly. We're talking about the services that he must render in the Western Cape province.
Honourable member, thank you very much. I doubt that that's a point of order, but I will watch with the ministers breaching on one of the rules around being impersonal or a personal attack. I will listen carefully, but I do see that there is a hand up from Honourable Said.
Deputy Speaker, can you
Honourable
maybe
Hartman, I can't hear.
urge the DA leadership and the EFF to engage outside? As they engage in Neisner to come together there, they can speak offline.
Thank you, Honourable
So they
Said.
don't, so they don't delay us because we want to start at
Honourable
1:30
members,
with the.
I would really like the minister to be able to conclude his debate. I know there are a lot of guests in the House that have been sitting patiently as he continues to talk. Minister, over to you.
No, indeed. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Deputy Speaker, I note the Honourable good member, through you, Member August, referring to spatial integration and so forth. But the last time I checked, the Honourable member of Good was a City of Cape Town councillor. He was the chief of council at some stage. So to talk about spatial integration when you had the time, Deputy Speaker, to do it, when you were a local government member, I really hope that you will now talk to your members who are currently there in that council to assist you in that regard, because I can't. Furthermore, and this is linked to what Member Maseko also touched on, is the issue of invasion and a specific area of Knoflokskraal, which is a burning point for TWK, I must say, Deputy Speaker. But there is news articles, video clips, Facebook postings of the Honourable Member's national leader with the Member's National Secretary General engaging the people of Knoflokskraal. And to put the cherry on top, one of the key drivers of those invasions, Deputy Speaker, is today a council member of Theewaterskloof municipality. I'm not saying it. Go to the newspapers, go to Facebook, see the clips. If the member disputes that, then we can gladly provide him with information to you, Deputy Speaker, but these are the facts which Honourable Maseko was touching on. But in conclusion, Deputy Speaker, a lot of what my department does, 60% is dependent on our partners at local government. If local government does not function well, if councils are not stable, key decisions can't be made and certain projects can't be implemented. And councillors can't exercise their oversight role. You would have noticed, Deputy Speaker and members of the House, that I started aggressively focusing on the illegal sales of BNG units. As
Honourable Minister, you will have to take your seat for a second. Honourable August, what's your point of order?
Deputy Speaker, point of clarity, actually. Will the minister take a question?
No. There can't be a point of clarity, so I can't have you discuss the minister's closing remarks, Honourable August. Thank you. You can engage with the minister afterwards. I'm sure that he will engage with you. Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Speaker. Like I said, an aggressive focus on the illegal sales of BNG units. Yes, my department and I have a role to play, but the National Housing Act also prescribes the role of local government. And when a council is unstable and councillors fail to execute their oversight role, we are seeing a rapid increase of the illegal sale of BNG units. And I need to emphasize, and I call on this House through Deputy Speaker to support me, to encourage people not to sell their BNG units. Once you have a title deed, there's even a preemptive clause that even prohibits you then to sell a house. But when you are selling a house without having a title deed, you are actually committing a crime. It's a civil crime and it's a commercial crime. At the moment, Deputy Speaker, I'm awaiting a legal opinion, hopefully by tomorrow, from the State Attorney, because I now will seek to take back what belongs to the state, to learn those beneficiaries a lesson that are even considering selling these houses. What you are getting, many people died for. Many people are not able to get that housing opportunity because you will afford an opportunity. How dare you sell that house? How dare you? Today, I invited a lot of our beneficiaries whose lives this government has changed. How dare you prevent somebody else from taking an opportunity? So, Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, and I'd love to leave you with a quote of Teddy Roosevelt, because this actually amplifies the message I want to leave here to our members. And it's the man in the arena. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither knows victory nor defeat. So let's stop pointing out what we're doing wrong. Assist us and improve what we're doing right. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. That concludes the debate on this vote. Honourable members, I would like to suspend the House for lunch for 30 minutes. We will reconvene at 1:30, 1300 hours 30, with the education vote. The House is now suspended. Thank you. Oh, good. I don't have to walk, eh?
Well, they've actually.
Ntoni lenzeka apha kanti mani?
am putting you. See somebody else. Me.